And that song, it's so very...
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-Drift.
Contact, nice to be in orbit. The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Oh, welcome back. We are broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the mossy creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. We are live on the Fringe FM, and it's Monday, October the 21st. Tonight, show host, author, narrator, storyteller, horror narrator, the one and only Dark Waters is here with us. It's been such a long time since we've had him on the show, and it feels like when we do shows with Dark Waters, it feels like home to me, because another man from the South, even further south than me. So we're going to get into some weird happenings and spooky tales, perfect for the month of our Halloween month as we head into the Scorpio. Sun's moving into Scorpio, so dark stuff, y'all. Really, got to pay attention to it. This show is brought to you by GetTheTea.com. Make sure that you get that tea, get cleansed. Also, D365, get that deal on that. If you forget your tea, you can get it in pill form. Go to GetTheTea.com. Also, AncientLifeOil.com. If you are a CBD lover like me, grab it. It's the best. And PrepareAtTheFringe.com. Don't get caught unawares. I want to tell you guys about something real quick. Tonight is our 400th broadcast. Now, all the archives are up on YouTube, and you know, like sometimes I'll get behind and all of a sudden 6 or 7 shows will pop up, and that's okay. They're still free. All right. But we're working on the commercial free stuff and the membership site too. But tonight, with all of the shows combined, even the stragglers, everything that we've done, it's the 400th broadcast tonight. Perfect if you're out, you know, checking out that meteor shower tonight. So grab your phone, whatever you're listening with. Go watch the meteors. I don't know when, I don't even know what direction to look in the sky. So y'all figure that stuff out. Use Google, you know. Watch it and listen tonight, because we're going to talk about some really cool stuff with Dark Waters here. Another thing, too, that I wanted to mention real quick is, you know, we talk about the occult and magic quite a bit on this show. And kind of like for the first time in my life, I've kind of been around this weird kind of dark energy, even this energy that where it kind of tries to throw back things on you as if you are, you know, the one casting dark spells or whatever. And, you know, sometimes I think that maybe we could be if we're not careful, like what we say that comes out of our mouth. But I can tell you all that I've never in my life done one single stinking, baneful magic spell or ritual in my entire life. And the reason why is because when it comes to things like that, I use prayer and Psalms, and Frater Xavier has put out a brand new course, and we have a direct link to this, so you got to go to the direct link if you want to help out the show, which is lightingthevoid.com/Psalms, and you know how to spell that. That's Psalmes. And what this is the book of Psalms of the Old Testament, right, has actually been one of the most powerful prayer books ever known to man. and it is very magical. So let's just say, I'll give you an example how cool this is. So let's just say that you're wanting to get protection, or you want to find the truth about something, or you want justice. There's a certain psalm that goes with that, and you can do that magic if you want to. I call it magic. Some people call it spirituality, but you can do that. And if there is some injustice or some lying or whatever going on, guess what? It will fester. If there isn't, though, here's the cool thing. Then nothing happens. See, nobody gets hurt. That's divine justice. That comes from spirit. That comes from the universe. None of this baneful, icky, dark stuff, right? So that's the stuff we want to stay away from. Now, I don't want to slam any magicians because I'm not going to do that. I mean, a lot of people practice whatever they want to, hoodoo, voodoo, whatever it is. We'll probably talk about some of that tonight, too. But I want you to be aware of this course because I think it's going to be very powerful for you. So, lightingthevoid.com/Psalms. And especially if you're like me, because I have a Christian upbringing, a Judeo-Christian upbringing, it really triggers something in my subconscious, which makes it even more powerful. Go check it out. It's pretty affordable. And if you go to that link, you'll also be able to help the show out. All right. Yeah, so the archives are caught up. It's our 400th broadcast. The meteor showers tonight. I don't know when it's kicking in. If you want to donate towards the show, now's the time because it's towards the end of the month, and this is when things get kind of iffy for us usually. There's a donate button at the bottom of the site. Also, if you want to check out what's best in the UFO field, you know where to go. UFOseekers.com. Always backed and supported by us and the Fringe FM. Follow them on Twitter at UFO Seekers. All their videos, season 4 is out on YouTube, youtube.com/UFO Seekers. And if you've had a sighting, give them a call at 661-UFO-7889. Now, most of y'all know that this man needs no introduction, and we've got a stellar week. I mean, tonight it's Dark Waters, tomorrow night it's Linda Godfrey, and the week just keeps going. It's perfect for Halloween month, right? But just in case you don't, Dark Waters burst into the paranormal community back in 2015, and it's taken it by storm with its one-of-a-kind storytelling abilities. Hailing from New Orleans, Louisiana, a paranormal hotspot, Dark's down-home southern vernacular combined with a smooth voice and outgoing personality have quickly made him a household name. His unique, high-quality audio content mentally takes you to the scene of the paranormal encounter and safely allows you to relive every breathtaking moment. Now, Dark Waters maintains a massive library of true encounters by making himself publicly available at IamDarkWaters.com. Man, it is good to have you back on the show, brother. It really is.
What's going on with you, brother? I'm happy to spend some time with you, and I miss talking to you. I hope life is treating you well.
It is, man. It's like, fair to Midland. It's always a good balance of things, good times and bad times, but everything happens for a reason. I believe that. I believe in divine guidance and grace. I live by grace. You know that, right? You do too, huh?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I'm happy to hear that you're doing your 400th show, and I will do my best to make this knockdown, drag out, explosive episode for you. And with that being said, I think we should actually start with what you started with, which is the Psalms of the Bible, and just kind of dip into that a little bit because I have an extensive experience with the Psalms of the Bible, very extensive experience in using it for protection mainly. But I do want to say this to people who use it. So the Psalms of the Bible are very magical in themselves. But you have to be careful when using them because you can't treat God as if he's a slot machine at a casino.
Right,
I've known people who do that with the Psalms, and you may start off and you may get a few gifts and prizes and a few little things. And then it starts to turn ugly and bad because you're abusing it. It really all boils down to your intentions and if you're using it based on what you really, really believe. My use of the Psalms is supercharged to the point to where I read them daily. So 30 days out of the month, I wake up and I read the Psalms before I start my day. But mine's is supercharged because of my faith and my belief, and it's not something that I'm using as to get things. It's not like I'm saying, okay, well, I want to pray the Psalms for better business or the Psalms for revenge or the Psalms for road opening and healing. Mm-hmm. It's although they have those uses, it's a part of my daily life. So it's a part of my rituals of my day. And it's a part of me as a man. It's a part of my household. My sons pray the Psalms, it's one of those things to where mine is supercharged. And I got to that point, Joe, because of some of the people that I associated with as Dark Waters that I found were doing some very dark magic trying to affect me. And that came through other people who were practitioners in hoodoo and voodoo who brought that to my attention. It was like, your stomach problems aren't natural. Your problems with your voice aren't natural. When your voice starts getting raspy and none of that stuff is natural. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, like someone's trying to do that to you. And I was like, well, how do I defend myself? And he's like, well, come on, you're a Christian. You pray to Jesus. I said, yeah, I pray to Jesus. I do it all the time. Like, it was like, well, no, you need to actually use the power of the Bible and use the power because you are a true Christian. Use it the way it's supposed to be used. And so finally I started researching. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, right.
And it's powerful. It's powerful beyond measure. So for those of you who want to use them, and the craziest thing, anyone can use it, any person can use it, but it's just if you want to use it the right way, talk about, people using tarot cards and trying to tap in to do these different rituals to try and get certain energies to give them visions and understanding. It all comes naturally with that. I mean, it's all there for you. So like, I'll go to bed, Joe. This is how crazy my stuff is. I'll go to bed, have a dream, wake up. As I'm waking up, something tells me, write this dream down. I'll text that dream, grab my phone, text it to someone. 2 days later, the entire dream comes true.
Yeah, right. Yeah, another thing too I want to say real quick is like with this, I totally believe in protection and stuff is good, but if you feel attacked or you feel foggy or you feel muddled or whatever, there's a lot of words for it. I can tell you right now, if you use the Psalms and you put your heart into it, like real love into it, and you come from a place of love, I can almost guarantee you it's going to show you everything you need to be shown. Right. That's what I know. That's how I use it. But I get what you're saying, man. Use it every single day. That is pretty powerful.
No, I'll go even further. So since I've started using it every day, and this is something maybe two people know. No one person knows this. Since I've started using them every day, I got a phone call out of the blue. Now, this is wild. I mean, this is completely wild. It started about, I don't know, maybe like a year and a half ago. It was the first time I got this phone call, and it was this pre-recorded pastor kind of prophesying on a voicemail message, right? And it would say something like, the Lord has a message for you, press 2, and it kind of rambles on and says something, you press 5, Whoa. And it goes into this kind of unique message, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I told you, maybe I told you some of this, but the first time it happened, it was about, loss of money that was coming my way. And it was like, you're gonna run into a loss of money, but the Lord wants you to know that the reason why you're losing this money is because you need to spend it in a certain way, and He's going to bless you tenfold afterwards, right? A couple of days after that, $15,000 gone. I couldn't even tell you how I spent $15,000. And this has progressed to where this number, and I've tried to, I can call the number back, but and it'll always be a pre-recording. I press 0, I press 4. I tried to Google the number, everything. But this number calls, and it's clearly some kind of hustle. I want to be clear. For another person, this is a hustle where it's like, give us $44. You know what I'm saying? But in my world, it's whenever that phone call rings and I answer it, whatever it says or whatever it's talking about is going on in that moment in my life or is about to happen in my life. Literally, it's either happening in that moment or it's about to happen. I'll give you a perfect example. One that actually brought me to tears just recently. I was having one of those off days because, as you know, Joe, building a brand of Dark Waters Paranormal isn't the first business venture that I've built. I've been spending time trying to rebuild my real estate empire, which prior to Hurricane Katrina was 36 properties, big. I owned a part of a mortgage company, I owned a full construction company, title company. Like I owned a lot. So I've been trying to rebuild that. This particular day when this phone call came in, which is about 2.5 weeks ago, I had just saw one of my old business partners, which was this guy I had mentored. And he's doing extremely well. But in the process of mentoring him, he stole a piece of one of my teammates. He stole a member of my team that actually catapulted him to where he is. So it's almost like someone stealing your Clydesdale horse that were the one that fed and raised and groomed and spent years developing. And then that Clydesdale says, oh, okay, well, I don't want to run with you. I want to run with him, right? So I bump into him, and, he's not being arrogant, but being aloof and trying to be condescending. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of laughing at it because, I know what goes up comes down. And, he's never been through the downside. He's been through the upside. So I'm like, just tell him, yeah, bro, what goes up comes down. You just keep on living. You just got to keep on living. So I come home. I lay across my bed and I started logging into my computer because I needed to record something. The phone rings, right? And the message on the phone is, press 2. The Lord has a message for you, blah, 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 blah. And then it says, the Lord wanted me to tell you today that he let old things pass for a reason. And he's showing you people who betrayed you because he needs you to remember the betrayal in order for you to grow and become better and stronger as to what's coming next. He's getting ready to unlock the doors of everything that you've been wanting. And then this is how crazy it is, Joe. It says there's some paperwork that's been holding you back. And this is so specific, and I'm going to get into my business. This is how specific this is. It says there's some paperwork that's been holding you back that he's about to release that's associated with your name, and he's going to change it overnight. And when he changes it, he wants you to wait before you move. And then the message says, thus says the Lord. And it says, press 9. Then once you press 9, it's like, give me $44, right? So I hang up the phone. That day, it was like it hit nail on the head. 2 days later, I get a phone call from one of the new guys that I've been doing business with. He says, hey, man, if your credit score was an 800, what would happen? So my credit score was 800. I could make $1 million in about 6 months. He was like, well, you did a favor for me and my family and saved us from losing our house. I'm going to square your credit away from your divorce. And I was like, well, What do you mean? He was like, in 2 weeks, your credit score will be 700. He said, in 4 weeks, your credit score will be 800. I'm like, all right, well, how much is it going to cost me? He was like, dog, I didn't tell you it was going to cost you any money. I'm just telling you, this is what I want to do for you because you saved my house and you saved my family. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. Now, inside of me, part of me is like, nah, I need to pay this dude. And then a little voice says, no, shut up. Let the man do what he's supposed to do. And I started hearing the recording, like, I'm going to change something associated with your name that's going to change everything. So, boom. I'm like, all right, bro, do it. 2 weeks passed, Joe. He calls me back. He says, hey, man, we need to – I actually forgot about it, to be honest with you. He calls me back. He said, hey, man, we need to pull your credit report. Give me a debit card number, blah, 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 blah. We pull it. The credit score is at like 636, 698, 720. You got 3 credit scores, right?
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, bro. Well, you got me squared away. I'm ready to go. I can go now. He was like, nah, you got a couple of things on here, man, that's been following you for a long time where they've been breaking the law doing it. Give me another 2 weeks. I'm going to put a trade line on your credit report. I'm going to get you to 850. And I'm like, I don't even know if you can get an 850, dog. He's like, you can get the 8. He's like, you can get the 850. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I back off of it. He calls me this morning. He was like, hey, man, we're going to pull you again Friday. You should be in the 800s to the 850s. Now, I tell that story because that specific communication with God started from me reading the Psalms, but not reading them from praying the Psalms, but not praying them like, oh, God, I want this. I want that. It's just a part of my ritual of my daily life. Yeah. And so it happens over and over and over and over again. And then what happens once you get really deep into praying the Psalms is people start to see the changes in your life and they want to know why your life is changing because they see it. It's like, whoa, okay, well, just 3 weeks ago you was worried about this and then that's completely fixed. And they're like, well, what did you do? I'm like, I didn't do nothing. God did it. So I just encourage people to use it the right way. You can use it like a slot machine at a casino if you want to, and it's going to come back and it's going to hurt you really, really bad. It's going to hurt you really, really, really bad.
Respect
and that goes into how my family used it.
Right.
My grandmother practiced hoodoo, which is the magical part of pretty much the magic of out of voodoo.
Mm-hmm.
And she used it for money. So, and back in those days, I can understand how and why she did it because she had 12 children and she needed to do whatever she needed to do. But it has consequences when you use it that way. And so many people I know in New Orleans use it that way. They're like, oh, I need fast luck, or I need help passing a test at school, or I need somebody to open a road for me to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
But you never hear about what happens on the back end because you treated it like it was, like you just rolling the dice, and that's not how it's supposed to be done.
Like it's just a tool. What's nothing behind it. Yeah. I do believe that there has to be, like, if you really want it to work the right way, and I know people are going to shake their head when I say this, but that faith part of you still has to be there at the very least, and you got to respect it. But if you got faith and you respect it, then it's a pretty powerful thing. It always has been in my life. And I kind of like when I do stuff like that, and even if it's any magic that I practice, I always try to make sure that nobody gets hurt. Justice is one thing, truth is another, but hurting people, even if they've hurt you, for me, it would have to be very rare for me to magically attack somebody. I would have to think that someone was trying to hurt my family, like for real, it'd have to be a very, very, very special circumstance. And I couldn't tell you, I'd probably still go to Psalms for that. I probably would, be honest with you.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, to be honest with you, if you're praying the Psalms daily, then there really is no need to defend yourself because you're actually doing all the prayers for defense anyway. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've discovered, especially recently. Like certain things that I used to worry about, like, exposing a person that was coming in and trying to take advantage. Like it's exposed immediately. It's almost like, a new guy came into our group just recently, and I think he had been working with us for like about a week and a half. And within a week, all of his intentions were just laid out for everybody to see. And it never really works that way in business because most of these guys are sharks and they've learned how to cover themselves and, to be the wolf in sheep's clothing. Right. But it just doesn't work. So as far as people magically doing things to other people, it's really prevalent down here in New Orleans. The only issue is I don't know if I don't practice magic, but I believe the word for it is karma. That's the only way I can think of describing it is karma. But the problem with putting that kind of negative energy out on a person is you pretty much get back what you put out 3 to 10 times fold when it comes back to you. Where typically in life, if a person's a bad person, life destroys them. It's something you can kind of push them off a cliff, but eventually they're going to jump off the cliff anyway. And what I found is that it's better just to let them run themselves off a cliff and stand there and laugh at them, be like, "You a freaking idiot! And I knew that was coming." Didn't even try and do any of that stuff to people.
Well, you get a lot of stories now. Does it seem like the stories that people are sending you are more about magical type things? Do you see that picking up? Because for me, I feel like maybe it's just because I get so many questions about it that more and more people are kind of getting into this stuff,
Well, I've had everything kind of across the board pick up recently, from people dibbling and dabbling in magic to people seeing strange things in the woods, a lot more demonic encounters. Yeah. It's almost like everything is kind of ticking on the uptick. which is a little worrisome, but I'm not so much to the point to where it's as frightening as it used to be. But locally, yes. In New Orleans, absolutely. Like I sent you a story that a gentleman shared with me. This had to be about a month and a half ago about someone about this potato salad and how this guy was cheating on his girlfriend. Well, he was married and then had a side chick, and the side chick didn't know that he was married. And she made this potato salad that she cursed, and it sent him to the hospital. That's one of the stories I believe I sent you to play tonight. And those kind of things are prevalent here in New Orleans.
Wow.
Extremely prevalent. And you go back to people saying, you know, if you meet a girl, don't eat anything with her red sauce in it because they think there'll be menstrual blood in it in order to get you to fall in love with her and for her to get control over you. So, you know, New Orleans is a place where voodoo, magic, and hoodoo is a part of the culture. So you can throw a rock into a crowd and find someone who has one of those stories.
Yeah, you know, there's another thing that I found out that happens too, like these love spells or whatever. That stuff is real prevalent, and I've been studying that a lot here lately, in some forums and, you know, looking online, and a lot of it you would think, like, it's one thing the only thing that I've ever done is just ask, you know, the universe, so to speak, to send me the right person, right? I've never targeted anybody, but you want to know something that I saw that was big time. It wasn't, well, it was two, actually. One was revenge, like after a breakup or something, which I think is stupid, you know, and another one was jealousy type stuff where people try to, like, cause people to do that, or they try to muddle stuff up or whatever, you know, with folks, just because they don't like the fact that they're seeing each other, whatever. Now, when I did the numbers and I compared the numbers, that was the two biggest ones. And I'm thinking, man, you guys got to be careful out there. If you don't have some type of spirituality or you don't believe in something, I'm telling you right now, especially if you're out in the public eye, be careful. Like, you need to protect yourself with stuff, you know. If you're religious, then protect yourself with God. But it was just, I don't know, man. It brings me down looking at that stuff, honestly. Because why do people want to do it? Like, what's the point?
Dude, let me go ahead. Let's get deep into this. So I'll take you back to when I was 12 years old. 12 years old. And I may have told this story to you, but forgive me if I have. I'll tell it to you again. I'm in a good mood. I'm feeling great.
Yeah.
12 years old. I lived in New Orleans East in this neighborhood called Little Woods. You can look it up on the map. It's out there by the swamps. There's these two gangs. There's the East Shore Posse and the Valley Boys. My friends were all East Shore Posse, and we were having a fight that particular Saturday night on the levee. So I snuck out of my bedroom, hopped on a bike with another friend of mine, rode on the handlebars down to the levee to get ready to do this fight. Make a long story short, we all square off the fight. I'm 12, going on 13 years old, fighting like 17, 18-year-old men, 19-year-old men. One of the guys pulls a gun. This is before people really started shooting people. You would hit people with bats and brass knuckles. You wasn't really shooting everybody.
Yeah.
But guy pulls a gun, starts trying to shoot. One of my friends is up saving my life. That night, I get home, climb back in the bed the next morning. I say, I'm going to church. Now, put a pin in that. Go to church that next morning. I decide I'm going to give my life to Christ at 12, going on 13 years old. A couple of days later, after getting baptized, that preacher who baptized me goes to jail because he was stealing money because he worked at a car dealership selling cars, and he was embezzling money, right? The next time I go to church, I'm in church, and I realized at that age I didn't know what these women were doing, but I knew it wasn't right. I'm in church. I'm sitting in the back pew. This lady walks over me, puts a hand over me, and she says, "Ooh, this boy is powerful. He's got a lot of power." The other lady says, "Yeah, he's got a lot of power. We might have to get some of that from him." And I'm like, what the hell are these women talking about, right? End up going to Bible study. Oh, dude, let me finish. I end up going to Bible study, doing it, you know, where you got to, in Black Baptist church, like, you got to do Bible study. Like, you know the books of the Bible, you know, like, you study. So it's like you really, really study. I I go into Bible study. You know, I was a little nervous to read. I do some reading, and this lady calls me to the back, like not in a storeroom, but in a little bit of an office. And this was the first time I ever saw Hoodoo candles. But she had, and I didn't know what they were at that age, but looking back on it, now I know. And because of the stories I've been told about what's going on in a lot of these churches, I realized that a lot of the magic that's love spells and jealousy and come to me spells and get away from me spells, a lot of that stuff was actually being done inside of churches. I've talked to pastors who had other pastors use hoodoo on them to try and take their wife.
What?
So, oh yeah, bro, it's crazy stuff like that going on. So, and most people who are Christians won't talk about it because they don't want nobody to know the mess and the drama that goes on inside of the church. But you have to remember, hoodoo practitioners, voodoo practitioners, like, for example, Marie Laveau was a devout Catholic who went to church. She also practiced voodoo. A lot of your hoodoo practitioners were Southern Baptist preachers and ushers and people who actually were very, very active in the church. They were just princes and witch doctors on the side. Okay. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and that's what people don't understand. So when you say that there's a lot of people using these spells, man, it goes way beyond anything that you can ever consider or imagine. For example, I have a client in my insurance business, Miss Faye. Miss Faye knows that someone in her family is burning candles on her daily. She just can't figure out who it is. This woman goes from one calamity to the next calamity. Like, it started with her husband dying. Once her husband died, her daughter had a stroke. Then her other daughter married a guy who was a drug dealer. He got arrested. Cars breaking, her health failing, everything constantly going wrong in this woman's life. You know, typically you get some kind of break from drama. You know, right. Life is kind of like the waves in the ocean. You're up and then you're down, then you're up and you're down. You're never just like down all the time. That's just not how it operates. But in this lady's life, that's how things have been. And she and I were talking because she used to be very close friends with my mother before my mother passed. And she told me one day, she said, boy, you know, if I could figure out who this is in this family burning these candles on me, I swear to God, I'll pull a bullet in their head, because it's, you know, in order to do this, you have to hate me.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have to hate her to do that. So, and it's very easy to get your hands on that stuff down here. Like, typically in a small city or small town, there may be one, what do you call the shops? A cult shop or whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
Right? Magic shop. There may be one. But, like, dude, literally down here, you got like 20, 30, 40 of them.
Wow.
So it's people doing that all day long.
Man, I'm going to have to come down there and visit you, man. Like, do like a video documentary or something, because I really want to go check that out, you know?
I'll take you to meet all the people. I know every last one of them that practice it. They're all pretty cool people. I wouldn't never want none of them mad at me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I probably won't be talking to many of them neither myself. But, you know, we got to take our first break, though. But, yeah, see, this stuff is going on a lot more than we all think. So I ain't trying to scare you or anything, but, you know, just do right by people and stay protected. Even if you don't practice magic, which could be a good thing, you know. A little faith never hurt anybody. We'll be right back with Dark Waters. Stay with us.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Root, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Did you know that qualified patients can access medical cannabis in all 50 states? Cannasense is a medical cannabis collective that helps patients in all 50 states gain access to cannabis medication. Cannasense does this with a streamlined process and strict compliance with the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, the Affordable Care Act, and the U.S. Constitution. It is important for each patient to understand the legalities involved, the costs, and the benefits of cannabis medication. Through truth, legalization, and education, the medical benefits of cannabis will supplant recreational perceptions, and the real vision for change will be realized. Let the people and their personal doctors take control of their medical cannabis decisions before the greed of big business takes over. The tipping point for change is today, and Cannasense is ready to lead the charge and enable legal access for all qualified patients to medical cannabis through its proven system. For more information, go to thefringe.fm/care or click the banner on the website today. Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas, the Fringe FM's new contributing artist, Eric Tisi. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot, never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck Wonderlight Tarot are both available now from wakingcanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's F-R-I-N-G-E at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to wakingcanvas.com today. That's wakingcanvas.com.
I think by now we can get the information.
I love magic, and on Lighting the Void, each and every week, you will get to hear shows about magic, mysticism, and many other subjects that stretch your mind and imagination. So when I got my mind on the magic and the magic on my mind, I listened to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. It's magic.
May the gods look with favor upon you.
You're wondering what we're going to do to you, aren't you?
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
All right, everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, me old China plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Light in the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your north and south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you beat a Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Now, Dark Waters is here with us tonight, and we haven't even got into the strange and weird yet. Just a good update on what's going on in his life, and it is good to have you back. And I promise you, brother, I'm going to come down there to New Orleans. I got to. I mean, I've lived in the South my whole life. Can't believe I haven't been down to New Orleans to check this out. So that's going to happen. But I know we've got some stories here, too, that you might want to play, but tell me, man, I got to tell you first before you tell me. You remember last time you were on this show and I told you how skeptic I was of cryptids and all this stuff, right? I told you that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
I think I've told you a few times. Well, a friend of mine here recently, I've actually got to experience, now I didn't see a cryptid with my own eyes, okay? I just seen I think we all did. We saw some pictures that just didn't make sense, but I actually got to watch this person's house overnight, okay? Like through a software, they put the camera on in their house, and I got to watch the house, and I guarantee you that there's something after this person. Like, I don't know what the hell it is, but I experienced for myself, and then I've taken part in a few, like, exorcisms when you kind of think something's happening, but you don't really know. But this was different, bro. This was really different, and it has changed my paradigm when it comes to this type of activity. So yeah, I'm starting to believe a little bit more and more. So I hope that makes you feel better. Cause
I'm just glad you got a chance to kind of get to the, it's kind of like getting beyond the branches and the tree limbs and the leaves and getting to actual trunk of the tree. Now you're touching on something that's solid and heavy, and eventually you'll get down to the roots of it. Yeah. And the truth of the matter about this situation is if we're talking about cryptid activity and not like something demonic or something imitating cryptid activity, because that's something that they do. Entities do that. We're talking about real cryptid activity, and you've had an opportunity to see some of the things that they do via camera.
Yeah, well,
it's undeniable.
I don't know if it was a cryptid. I could just hear, like, I heard doors slamming, the lights were out, like I heard footsteps. Like, it could be demonic. Honestly, I don't know. But the last time that I got involved with an exorcism, it was a few years ago, and I was helping somebody, actually, and this was coming out of a person, man. Like, this was like the person would curse and stuff, and then it was almost like they had multi-personalities. I don't never talk about it because I don't want to get that stuff back on me. But this was different, man. This was like poltergeist type activity, but then they also showed a picture to us here on the show too. And see, that's where I'm at. Like, I'm all confused now because I don't know. Like, I just want away from it, kind of, because I think there's something there, that I don't understand. And I don't know if it's a demon, a cryptid, or what, but the face of it looked like a cross between an alien, a demon, maybe, the pictures that we were shown. And for some of y'all remember that. So yeah, all I'm saying is that I'm starting to experience some of the stuff for real that isn't necessarily metaphysical, where it's just inside one person. Like, it's actually affecting the outer world, so to speak.
Right, I'm with you. Two things. I don't know if I sent you the story, but I should send you the DMT Dogman encounter story, because I think you'll find that very interesting. Number one, that. Number two, so a number of encounters that I've had from people were purely cryptid encounters. Those pure cryptid encounters typically started away from their property, and then it led to this creature following them back to their property, to their house or their trailer home, or to their extensive piece of land, right? And that's one of the ways it's an actual real cryptid, Bigfoot, Dogman, lizard man, whatever hell kind of creature it is, right?
Right.
When we start getting into the demonic entities that typically will manifest or, parade around as a Bigfoot or a Dogman. That activity is different. It makes no sense. Right. For example, there was one guy who came to New Orleans. Him and his wife came down here 2 years ago, and they saw a Dogman inside of their Airbnb, like a gigantic werewolf inside the house, inside their Airbnb, in the Bywater, which is like, by the river of New Orleans, in a neighborhood. That was something demonic manifesting itself as something that it knew would scare them, right? And so you kind of got to determine, based on what the person's telling you and based on the evidence that you have, and what you're seeing, what it is. So geographical locations are significant when it comes to cryptid encounters. You don't have them in apartment complexes. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So you just really, really have to be skeptical, which is how you are, which makes sense. And it's good to be that way. Like, I'm very skeptical. Most people think I believe everything I hear. I don't. I'm extremely skeptical. I just don't let the person telling me the story know that I'm skeptical of what they're saying. And I just let them talk and I question them. But I'm extremely skeptical. And that's how I've been able to learn everything that I've learned about cryptids and about the demonic side, which used to really scare the hell out of me, but it doesn't really scare me as much as it used to anymore because now I understand what it is. So when you start talking about the things that look like grays, which have been people have been seeing next to their beds. I've talked to people who've seen grays that look kind of grayish but Bigfootish. It's all demonic manifestations. It's literally all demonic manifestations.
Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking too, man. That's what I was thinking. Exactly. Okay.
And when you start saying manifestations, it's not necessarily like it's manifesting itself from nowhere. It's just allowing itself to be seen from a dimension that's right next to us. There's a reason why we get cold chills, and when you start talking about certain things, you know that you're attracting it to you. It's because it's there around you. It's just that it's not in the same dimension as you. And so they start crossing over to your dimension. Now you can feel them. You can see them. You can smell them. And that's pretty much how it works. And that's coming from my personal experience. That's coming from talking to some serious occultists who called me one time and said, "Hey, man, we're just going to explain to you how stuff works." Mm-hmm. And I'm very thankful those guys explaining it to me, because had they not taken time to just kind of give me the game, my faith wouldn't be as strong as it is right now in God and in good. You never really understand the battle between, good and evil until you actually witness the battle. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So when you start really witnessing the battle, and like, for example, Joe, we haven't talked. So I've had so much crazy crap. Like, Joe, I had a 3-month time period, dude, where people were calling me, different people, different voices, different phone numbers, all of them continuing one single long conversation. So, what? And what I mean by that is the very first phone call was, "Hey, can I speak to James?" He called on the Dark Waters phone number. It's not hard to find out my name is James Williams, right? So, okay, hey, what's up? What's going on? This is James. Hey, I was just calling to tell you that God doesn't love you. Click. Okay. That's weird. The next phone call comes in the next day. Older lady's voice. He abandoned you when you were a child. Click. The next day.
An old lady's voice said that to you?
An old lady's voice. The next day, a guy, this had to be like a teenager, because whoever it was driving in a car, because I could hear, it was like a truck, because I hear the truck going, and it was like going over a bumpy road, like, and it started getting real personal, Joe. This guy says, "You weren't in the hospital when your mom died. You went home and went to sleep." Click. Like shit that nobody, part of my language, that nobody knows, Joe. Like nobody, stuff that nobody knows.
So what'd you do? Did you start praying to meet? I would have. I would have.
I let it. I prayed about it, and I let it go on.
Okay.
Because I needed to. So prior to it starting, I did a prayer. I said a prayer one night, and this was right after, because there's so much weird stuff has happened. So let me skip back. This is right after I first talked to Tony Merkel from the Confessionals podcast. He and I ended up talking because my cell phone dialed his number out of the blue. I didn't even have this dude's phone number. My phone calls his phone, just calls the dude's phone. Never, his phone wasn't even in my phone. Like, his phone number wasn't even in my phone. It calls his phone. Him and I go back and forth. He's like, yo, dog, this is crazy. I know you, but I don't know you. I don't have your number. What the hell is going on? I'm like, dude, this kind of crap happens all the time with me, right? And he and I were talking. I was like, well, I asked God to show me, to let me see evil for what it is, so I know that it's real. And from that time past period after that happened, I saw a 12-foot shadow creature in my house, literally 12 feet tall. And then these phone calls started. And it went on until they said what they had to say. And basically it was that everything was God's fault. He let it all happen. He didn't. And the reason why he let it happen was because he didn't love me. And I mean, we went into some stuff, Joe. They went into stuff that I'll repeat to you off air so nobody knows. But man, it went into some stuff that people just don't know that I did.
So they were messing with your guilt and your shame. And that's demonic. That's definitely demonic.
Oh, absolutely. But the problem was for them was that after the phone calls ended, then the other phone call started, which is the phone call from the preacher or the prophet. In between that period where those stopped and the phone calls from the prophet started, I'm praying, and the way God answers me is in the back of my mind. It said, yeah, they're right. I did let all that happen to you because you chose for those things to happen and you made those decisions, but it could have went way worse than it went. But I was there with you when you did all those things. And I'm still here for you now. And so it backfired because it's like, wow, okay, I asked you to let me see evil and experience evil. So I've experienced it. Like, I know for real what it is. I know without a doubt what it is. So I know what it is. I experience it. I understand that it's there. I understand that there's people who have the ability to put a hex on you. I understand that there's people out there who do things to children in order to gain power.
Yeah.
I understand all those things, right? But I also understand that just as powerful as that darkness is, there's a light that's more powerful. And so, like I told you earlier, now when we were on break, man, I don't even worry about it anymore for the most part, because I understand that those are two sides of the coin. That's the coin. That's the fight that's going on. I know what side of the fight I'm in, and it is what it is. You know, I'm going to take hits for being on this side, and that's just how it's going to happen.
Yeah, but you know what I've noticed too is like whatever this is, when you give into fear, that it feeds off of fear, man. Like it literally feeds off of it like a parasite. And it messes with people.
That's the one thing that I don't have anymore. So if you recall, I told you I used to have like night terrors, extremely bad night terrors. Remember telling you about that years ago?
Yeah.
Well, I would lay in the bed and it felt like someone was grabbing my spine and plucking it like it was a guitar string, like bling, your whole body would just vibrate and ring. That was at the height of the fear. But fear comes from not understanding things. And that's the honest to God truth. Like, we're afraid of what we don't understand.
True. Yeah, for sure.
So if you don't, pardon me, I had to mute so I could belch. But if we don't understand that there's a battle between good and evil, then we're 100% afraid of it, right? Because it's kind of like you don't realize you're in the middle of World War VII. There's bombs going off, bodies exploding, crazy stuff happening all around you. You actually pick up on it and you feel it internally and externally. Like your body senses it, your mind senses it, your emotions feel it. You're being manipulated by things that are going on around you, but you don't realize that you're in that battle. And since you don't realize you're in that battle, it's kind of like you're just being blown around in the wind. And so it takes a toll on you, provokes fear, because you haven't kind of planted a flag in, whatever side you're going to be on. Once you plant a flag and say, okay, this is where I stand on things, then there's no need to be afraid because you know what's coming your way.
When I felt it, man, like this a couple of weeks ago, I was at a paranormal conference and I was at a museum, MacArthur Museum, and I guess the museum director or whatever let me, or let us go down into like the basement where there's all the stuff that they keep in a museum. And it was all war stuff. I mean, just helmets, guns, knives, swords, everything that has to do with every kind of war. And there was helmets in there, like SS helmets with bullet holes in it. And you could feel sometimes, not just war, but you could feel a spiritual war going on. Like, why did all these people have to die? Over what? Over land and territory. I mean, I had to go outside and sit down and really like get away from it and think about it for a minute because it messed with me so much, like, well, why are all these people having to die? And now these days you see things happening like shootings and, we got all these new war weapons. So there's killings going on all the time we don't see. And it's all over commerce and power. And it's like, I think that whole thing where, we don't battle against flesh, but against principalities and powers, that's 100% real, like there's something going on in the background that we don't see. We think everything's rainbows and stuff, but in the background, there's definitely a battle going on.
No, there's a battle raging beyond, most people's comprehension right now, man. It's to the point to where, from what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, and the people that I've spoken to who are actually in certain aspects of the battle, it's some stuff that's going on right now that's never, ever went on before. There's some darknesses that are rising in places that they've never risen before. Then there's light coming to places where there was never light before. And that's about par for the course, though, to be honest with you. And that's the way I see it. That when you start talking about spiritual warfare and spiritual battles, it's really about par for the course. What I can say to people is this: it's nothing to be afraid of. It's something you should be prayerful of. And you should be praying for yourself and for your family and pray out generations. So if you have children, pray for your grandchildren and their children. Because what I've learned, Joe, from my family's background is that our families are kind of like buffers, buffers and capacitors. So like in engineering, a capacitor stores an electrical charge, right? And so you're going to have negative, not necessarily a negative capacitor, but imagine if your family's a capacitor that stores negative energy.
That makes sense.
You see it in the black community all the time, right? Like you see where there's families there's kids who come from broken homes and broken bloodlines, and where their father went to jail, their mother was a prostitute, their brother died in the streets. And it's like they're trapped in this cycle because their family is this negative capacitor, and the capacity for negativity is so strong that it kind of rolls down generation after generation through that bloodline. Uh-huh. We as fathers, mothers, uncles, sisters, brothers, cousins, our job is to be a positive capacitor to where we're holding and storing positive energy for the future generations and future children of our bloodline. So when I pray daily, it's for my kids' future. When I pray to God that He supercharges their guardian angels. I don't want them with regular guardian angels. Look, let's swap those guys out. Let's send some war angels to be their guardian angels. Please, can we do that? Stuff like that. Just to supercharge the bloodline, to supercharge the protection and the prosperity that goes along with it. And I think that's one of the things that's important. A lot of the aspects of the spiritual warfare that's playing out right now, most people will never understand them. Like most people, we talk about Dogman, Bigfoot, but we never really get into human-animal clones. when we talk about the paranormal. Maybe you talk about it on your show. I've talked about it in some of the stories, but we don't get into human animal clones. We don't get into the transhumanism agenda, where right now they're trying to, when I say they, the most elite people in the world are actually trying to get rid of humanity as a whole, and replace us with transhumanism. That's why you see every TV show, every freaking movie is a superhero. Everything is augmented reality or augmented living, where people are getting microchips in their arms and all the rest of the stuff. Because humanity, which is what God created, man and woman, Adam and Eve, family, that only leads to righteousness and goodness. Now, it can be torn apart and it can be manipulated and it can be twisted and screwed around to where people think and behave in ways that are abnormal, right? But at the end of the day, if left alone, it's going to work perfectly. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If not propagandized, if not told, if you don't tell kids, little boys that they're girls and girls that they're boys, they're going to grow up and be normal. So in order to move past that, you have to move into something different. What we see the world moving towards now is transhumanism. And
which
you see
is pretty scary. Yeah, we've talked about that quite a bit on this show. I don't mean to cut you off, but we do got to take a break here. And look, I promise you guys, we're going to do some of these stories from Dark Waters. It's coming, But I got to catch up with him. I hadn't got to talk to him in a while. And it sounds like, man, you've been through some crazy stuff. I mean, that phone call, those back and forth phone calls like that is some pretty scary stuff. Listen, if you guys are actually catching some of this meteor shower, I don't know when it's going to start, but let me know. Hit me up in the Fringe FM chat or email contact@lightingthevoid.com. We'll be right back with Dark Waters.
And you are listening to The Fringe FM.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to The Fringe FM.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to The Fringe FM and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on The Fringe FM.
What's up, Joe? Hey, man, I just wanted to say your show, dude, keeps getting better and better and better. I love Lighting the Void and The Fringe FM.
Alex. Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste-great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
This is Reverend John M. Polk. Please visit me at johnpolkmedia.com and visit my show, Quantum Hologram Matrix, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, every Tuesday on thefringe.fm.
Looking for things that go bump in the night? I am Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange Radio, reminding you to tune in to the Fringe FM this Halloween season and listen to all things paranormal, supernatural, and downright scary. Join the Fringe FM Discord channel and chat live with your favorite host and Fringe friends. Whether it's All Hallows Eve, Dia de los Muertos, or Sam Hain, it's gonna get spooky up in here. So scream your heads off with the Fringe FM. Stay strange.
Hey Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing his journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for the delightful evening.
Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
In the year 2018, this station produced one of the most terrifying tales ever broadcast on radio. Bigfoot Speaks, Interview with the Sasquatch. This year we bring you an even more terrifying tale to send chills down your spine. Scary. One night only, October the 31st. Be there if you dare.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
You're listening to The Fringe FM.
Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
All right, so Dark Waters is our guest tonight here on Lighting the Void. For just joining us, I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void live on the Fringe FM. We're here Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific to midnight. Tomorrow night, Linda Godfrey will be on the show for the first time ever. Looking forward to that, so we're kind of keeping this theme. But we have one of the classic storytellers here with us tonight. One of the most well-known in the community is Dark Waters, and I know you did bring me some stories, and so tell me about this next one that we're going to play, unless you got anything you want to talk about before we do this.
No, let's get to the story, because I'm rambling about other stuff. I think some of that stuff is important for people to hear and understand, but let's get to the stories. I think the one that you're going to play is called Witch Doctor versus Grandma. And this is actually a story that goes into someone using and practicing hoodoo against this guy's grandmother. And it's actually a very, very good story. Now, Joe, I got to warn you, like, I've been trying to outdo my production abilities. So, like, these stories now versus what they used to sound like, now it's wow. I mean, it's like you're going to, and I don't know if you have your membership, but I don't know if you've been listening. Like, you're going to walk through an experience. So ladies and gentlemen, as he plays it, you're going to walk through everything that I walked through, from the scriptures that I was told to relate to it, to what Grandma did, to everything. You're going to experience it. And that's where the content is now. It's a lot less content that I put out, but the stuff that I do put out, you're living. It's a movie. It literally is a movie. You're going to visualize everything. So all right. You guys are going to enjoy this one.
All right, let's do it. Let me get this thing going here.
Thus saith the Lord God, because that Moab and Seir do say, Behold, the house of Judah is like unto all the heathen. Therefore, behold, I will open the side of Moab from the cities, from his cities which are on his frontiers, the glory of the country, Beth Teshemeth, Baalmeon, and Kiriathaim, unto the men of the east with the Ammonites, and will give them in possession, that the Ammonites may not be remembered among the nations. And I will execute judgments upon Moab, and they shall know that I am the Lord. Thus saith the Lord God, because that Edom hath dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and hath greatly offended, and revenged himself upon them. Therefore thus saith the Lord God, I will also stretch out mine hand upon Edom, and will cut off man and beast from it, and I will make it desolate from Teman, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, saith the Lord God. Thus saith the Lord God, because the Philistines have dealt by revenge, and have taken vengeance with a despiteful heart to destroy it for the old hatred, therefore thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will stretch out mine hand upon the Philistines, and I will cut off the Cherethims, and destroy the remnant of the seacoast. And I will execute great vengeance upon them with furious rebukes. And they shall know that I am the Lord, when I shall lay my vengeance upon them.
My grandmother is now going on to be with the Lord. But she was born and raised in Violet, Louisiana. And as a younger man, I always remember her sitting outside on her porch reading her Bible. On Saturdays and Sundays when I would come over to visit, she used to tell me little small things that I didn't understand at the time. Like, son, don't believe everything them pastors tell you in church. You know, our God is a vengeful God. So don't be falling for that BS them pastors telling you in church about turning the other cheek. And don't you let nobody push you over, because my God is no chump. At that point in time in my life, I really didn't understand what Grandma was talking about until I was 19 years old. She had this run-in with a local witch doctor. And by witch doctor, I mean this dude was the real deal. He had traveled to West Africa and been through all kind of mystery systems. So this guy moves into our town and opens up a little shop. Make a long story short, every Saturday, Grandma and her 4 friends would go out to the same street that this guy's shop was on, and they would try and bring people into the church to Jesus Christ. And it just so happened that the corner that he opened his shop on was the corner where these ladies had been doing this for the past 10 years. With him being new in town, I guess from his perspective, he took it personally. Like the only reason they were there is because he opened the shop. The guy comes outside, he and my grandmother and her friends exchange words, and then they go their separate ways. A week later, 3 of her friends fall ill, and Grandma tells my dad that weird things are starting to happen around our house. She's hearing noises, seeing shadows out of the corner of her eyes, and things are moving from one location to the other in the house. Me personally, I'm thinking Grandma is up in age, she's bugging and tripping. Nothing possibly could be going on at her house. That's until one Saturday night, my dad and I are over there for dinner. We're sitting at the dining room table. And if you're sitting in my grandmother's dining room, the table runs the length of the room. So if you're sitting at one head of the table, your back is to the front door. At the other end of the table, your back is to the kitchen door. Grandmother is sitting with her back to the kitchen door. I'm sitting to the left of her, and my dad's sitting to the right of her. We said our grace, and we started eating. My dad had just started to tell Grandma about this new guy he hired at his job, some guy from New York, and how this guy was rude and mean. When we start to hear this growling sound coming from by the front door.
And again, let me paint a picture for you. Grandma had a traditional Creole cottage house, meaning literally she had windows as tall as her front door. And if you open them up and squat it down, you could duck walk out of the windows. So we're sitting there and we start to hear this growling sound. I mean aggressive, vicious growling, like 20 dogs are outside the front door. And then this hoofing and snorting sound and scratching as if there was a dog literally scratching up the paint on her porch. And then 3 knocks at her door. Dad motioned to get up from the table and go to the front door. And as he moved, my grandmother simply put her hand on his arm and said, "Stay right here, honey. Don't worry about it." Now, let me tell you something. My dad and we sitting there freaking out. I know based on the look on his face, he's panicking. And I could tell you based on the way the muscles in my face felt, it had to be twisted up. But not Grandma. She just sat there calmly eating her food and continued to talk. This goes on for a good 3 to 4 minutes, and then everything stops. We finish having dinner, we take our place into the kitchen, and now Dad and I are helping Grandma do the dishes. He looks at her and says, "Mama, you not worried about what that was outside the front door of your house?" She calmly looks at him and says, "No, honey, I'm not worried about that one bit at all, and neither should you." And honestly, I can't tell you what my grandmother's nerves were made of, whether it was steel, iron, or gold, because that woman insisted that we go home that night and leave her in that house by herself. The next day, Grandma calls my dad and tells him to bring me over to the house. When we get there, she has 3 glass vials. She tells us to go down to the Catholic Church, fill these 3 vials up with holy water. And then she instructed for my dad and I each to drink the holy water from one of the vials and bring the 3rd one back to her. And when we came back, she had one of those old Polaroid cameras. You know, the kind that you hit the button and it instantly gives you the film? She told us, go down to that witch doctor's shop, sit in the car, wait for him to come. Before he goes in, snap a picture of him and bring it back to me. So we headed back that way, and Dad and I sat in that car for about a solid 4 hours in the heat, waiting on this man to come. Finally, he shows up, we snap a picture, and leave. Now listen, this is when it really gets creepy. We get back to the house right about 4:45. The sun is about to go down. Grandma is sitting on the porch with the Bible in her hand. We hand her the picture. She takes that holy water, pours it on the picture, and stuffs it in the back of her Bible. And then she starts reading scriptures out loud. And then the next thing you know, she's calling out every name of God. Jehovah, Jah, Jehovah Nisi, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Shalom. She was using names for God that I had never ever heard, and to this day, I still can't pronounce. This goes on for a solid 4 hours. Then she stands up, reads Ezekiel 25, closes her Bible, and comes inside. I tell you no lie, literally by the time Grandma closed the door to the house and made it into the kitchen to get a glass of water, this thunderstorm starts raging outside like nothing I had ever seen or heard before. She looks at me and my dad and tells us to open every window and every door of the house and let the Lord's Spirit blow in. So now my dad and I are scrambling around the house, opening windows, and again, she has the classic Creole cottage windows. Rain is pouring into the house, onto the hardwood floors, and Grandma is just sitting at the table quietly, humming and singing. This goes on for about 35, 45 minutes. When all the rain stops, she tells us, close the house back up and go home. Now listen to this crazy. 2 days later, Dad and I are on our way to the grocery store. We're riding down the same street where the witch doctor's shop was, when Dad slams on the brakes. I look over, and it looks like a tornado hit this building. But what I need you to understand was this was a storefront that was connected to other stores, but the only thing that was damaged on this entire street was this building. Had I not known about the storm, I swear to you, I would have thought that a demolition team came out there with heavy equipment and ripped that building down to the foundation. Now my dad and I are completely freaked out, so we turn around and head on over to Grandma's house, but she's not home. I don't see my grandmother till the following Sunday. When I see her, she's in church with her friends. They all look healthy and happy. I slide in the pew right next to her and I whisper, "Grandma, did you see what happened to that man's building?" She looked at me, smiled, and whispered, I told you our God was a vengeful God. Some people got to learn the hard way, baby.
Some people got to learn the hard way. That's pretty intense, brother. That is.
Dude.
Wow.
When homeboy called and told me that story, and let me start from the beginning of how that story, how he started the conversation. So he says, "Hey, Doc, I want to tell you a story about something that happened with my grandma, and my dad can vouch for the story." And I'm like, "All right, well, where's your dad?" And he was like, "Well, he's outside, but I'll tell you the story, and then I'll get him to vouch the story." I was like, "All right, well, that's cool. You know, normally people tell you a story, and the person that's got to vouch for it, you got to wait days for them to call you back." So I'm like, "All right, I'll take this one." And he starts off ranting and raving about what's the actor's name? The black actor's name, Samuel Jackson.
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, Samuel Jackson actually made a mockery out of the Bible in his Pulp Fiction. And I saw Pulp Fiction, bro, but I never really watched it. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody said, "Oh, you got to watch Pulp Fiction." I watched it, but I wasn't paying attention to it because it didn't really interest me. And he goes into how powerful that scripture is and how his grandmother told him how powerful all the scriptures are if you know how to use them. So he goes and he tells me the story, and then his dad comes in. You literally hear his dad come in from outside. You hear the screen door opening, and slam and close. Dad. He called him Dad, not Dad. He said, "Dad, I got Dark Waters on the line." He was like, "The guy that tells stories?" He's like, "Yeah. Won't you tell him what happened with Grandma?" He's like, Yeah. Hold on. And you hear him digging in the refrigerator. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm so happy to talk to you. I've been listening to you for a long time, and we've talked about sharing this story with you." So he starts from the beginning, tells it from his perspective. And I'm like, wow. And they go into the part where they're talking about sitting at the dinner table. And I say, "Well, what do you think that was outside?" He's like, "My mama told me it was a hellhound is what it was."
Oh.
And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, she told me it was a hellhound. After it all was over and done with, she said someone had sent a hellhound." And I've heard stories, and I know witches here that have the ability to send a hellhound for somebody. So I know it's true, and it can be done. Some of our voodoo priestess here have that ability. We sat down and talked about it. And that's very powerful, dark magic somebody sending at you, man. But the story was so intense that I wanted to recreate it exactly how it was told to me. And I think I did a good job of it.
No, man, you're getting really good. Yeah. I mean, your old stories were good. All your stuff's good, but I could tell this had it's got a different sound to it. Now I'm an audio snob, so I really like sound. You know what got me was at the beginning was the Alexander Scorby. Alexander Scorby reading the Bible. That's what my dad used to do to punish me when I was a kid. For real. Like,
really?
When he sent me to my room, instead, when he didn't want to whip me, he would send me to my room. And I had a little bitty room, and I'd have to shut the door and read my King James Bible while listening to those Alexander Scorby tapes. So I know that voice anywhere. Alexander Scorby could talk in a crowd of 10,000 people, and I could pick him out,
No, he's got a powerful, powerful, powerful voice. And his ability to relate the scriptures is amazing. It really, really is. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy punishment, though, but I've got a lot of Bible verses memorized in my head because of it, I think he did it on purpose, but that was a pretty intense story. I'll tell you another thing, too, that kind of relates to is, how earlier in the show I was talking about the guy that made that Psalms chorus, Frederick Xavier?
Right.
He has a channel called Minded Magic, but he bases his magic on like old Rosicrucian style, super traditional magic that's got, Judeo-Christian gods and everything in it. And he was talking about the same thing in one of his videos where he was using his pentacle that he made. And that pentacle had a lot of, Hebrew God names on it. And he said when he held it above his head and he said, "Behold," and he would say the God name real loud, he said lightning struck twice. Like you could feel the power of it. So that's what it kind of reminded me of too.
Oh, no. I mean, yeah. When you start calling God by his name, so for example, most people don't even truly understand what worshiping God is. Like, I grew up in the Black Baptist church, and I always thought that worshiping God was
church,
actually singing and tambourines and, people waving their hands. As I got older, started studying, worshiping God is calling him by his name and his attributes.
Right.
El Shaddai,
Jehovah,
strong
Elohim names.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, the names. And then what the names mean, that's actually worshiping God. Once you start doing that, man, listen. That's all I'll say. But I'll tell you like this, something, I was working with Bloody Mary down here. She's the one that bought the Rampart Street murder house where Zach killed Addie. And so I was working on some audio stuff for her app. And so, I go in and out of all these places now and don't worry about it. So I'm at home by myself and I'm working on her audio. And for the first time in a long time, something came into my house. Like I knew it was there. I could feel it. It was standing at the doorway. It was looking at me. And so she calls right as it's standing at the doorway looking at me. And I said, Mary, I said, are you psychically, looking in my house? You got somebody remote viewing me or something like that? And she's like, no. I said, well, one of your friends is here at my house. And I said, you need to get your people to leave. And she's like, oh, James, they're probably there to help. I said, no, that's not cool. Like, you need to get whatever this is that's associated with you to leave. And I was like, I'll give you a little while to do it, or I'm going to do it myself. Right. And she was like, well, sometimes they come and they want to make sure you're doing what you're doing and that you're keeping your word. And I said, listen, I don't need nothing to help me keep my word. I keep my word as a man. So you need to do what you got to do to get it to leave. I said, but I need to finish doing this recording. So now I'm doing my part of the recording and I'm picking up this talking beneath my voice. So as I'm kind of reading what I need to read for her, I'm picking up this kind of whispering. I can't tell what it is, but it's underneath my voice. So I slow it down, magnify it, and you can hear this whispering. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to give you one chance to get up out of here. If you don't, then I'm going to start calling God to remove you out of here. And I said, you're not going to want that. And still that sense is there. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to give it a chance to go because I'm not afraid of you. You ain't going to do nothing to hurt me, but I'm going to give you a chance to leave on your own. Man, it's time for me to go to bed, Joe, and I'm getting sleepy. Right. And so, you know how you're getting in the bed, if you sleep with the doorway open and something's there, you can feel it. So I say, I'm laying in the bed. I'm laying on my left-hand side, my back's to the door. And so I start calling God's name. I started off with like El Shaddai, Adonai. And so I start going through the names. And I was like, and I said, by the time I get to Jesus, I said, you can either leave on your own. I said, or something can come and yank you up out of here. I said, so you can leave now on your own. I said, or you can be taken out of here. I don't know where they're going to take you to or where you're going to end up at, but you probably should go on your own. And as soon as I said that, boom, gone. The sense, the feeling, everything's gone. The house is back normal again. I get up out of the bed just to walk around and make sure I don't feel or sense anything, and it's back to normal. So,
you claimed your domain like that. No fear, just know it. Yeah, that's good. That's the good stuff.
No more of that foolishness. I don't play any more of that. Because if you let them sit around and hang around and do whatever they're going to do, then, they kind of try and make themselves comfortable in your domain. And I got enough problems. I don't need that kind of foolishness, man.
It's not only that, man. Like when I get around people that give in to fear too much, I don't want to be around them, honestly. And they get offended about it too, James. It's like, well, why don't you want to help me? And I'm like, listen. If you can't stop giving into that fear, you're gonna get this stuff on me, and I don't want it on me. I know who I am, right? That's what I think everybody should do. That, like, know your stuff, know your truth, know what you believe in, and don't let nobody's stuff rub off on you. It don't have to be somebody else. Maybe they just don't know how to deal with it. But I think sometimes you got to give up on them if they ain't gonna listen. I did that with my son once, a couple of times, until he learned his own lesson. But it's kind of like tough love, if that makes any sense.
No, that's the only way you can do it. I have friends and business partners now that actually practice hoodoo for their business. And the problem with them practicing it for their business, the way they do it is it leaves them constantly agitated. And I don't know what it is about practicing magic. I guess it's because you expect to get something immediately. I guess it's the instant gratification. Well, when you don't get the instant gratification, you're constantly agitated and aggravated. Things are constantly they're going right. It's like 5 steps forward, 6 steps back type thing for him. And the problem with doing it that way, and the problem with dabbling around with it that way, is he ends up being depressed quite often. I mean, he's constantly depressed. He's constantly upset about something, to the point to where, like, he and I can't really hold long conversations. So our conversations now are, hey, I got a buyer that wants to buy ABC. We have a product to do ABC? Yeah, we got it. What do you need from me? Well, I need you to do this. Well, I need you to do this. I'll call you back. All right, here's what you need. Here's what I need. When we go into closing, boom. We'll meet each other, get a check, hang out for a little while, and go on about our business. But because that's the path he's chosen, there's a whole bunch of other things that come along with it that's just frankly just disgusting and aggravating.
You know, we call those in the South, we call them haints, right? Things that just stick on you. You got to get rid of them, right? So, look, we got some more stories to talk about, some more conversations. You know, nobody in the chat has even told me they've saw one single meteor yet, so I don't know. They're saying this was supposed to be the big one tonight, so maybe they don't know what they're talking about, or maybe we just ain't looking in the right places. Look, more Lighting the Void coming up with Dark Waters right after this. Stay with us.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast. Need another late night fix? You can tune in every weeknight to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop on The Fringe FM.
Hi, this is David Oman with HouseAtTheEndOfTheDrive.com. You're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Harry Horton. Millions of Canadian voters are casting their ballots as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tries to hold on to power. The US is considering keeping some troops in northeastern Syria to prevent oil from falling into the hands of the Islamic State. And the UK House of Commons Speaker has refused a government request to hold a simple yes-no vote on Brexit. Downing Street said it was disappointed, but will go ahead with more lengthy Brexit legislation instead.
I like to listen to Lighting the Void because of the guests, the content, and the host, Joe Roop. He's smart, he's intelligent, and he seems to ask the questions that we all have on our mind. We're all searching for the truth, and Joe helps us get closer to it. I love this show. I love this show. I love this show. Lighting the Void.
What's up, Joe? Hey, man, I just wanted to say your show, dude, keeps getting better and better and better. I love Lighting the Void and the Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM. See you then.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you're interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Hello, this is Vance Nesbitt. Take the time to expand your mind by listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop right here on the Fringe FM.
Alex X.
Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
To Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Well, meteors are falling from the sky somewhere, and apparently some of the aftermath of Halley's Comet. I did get a kind of weird picture via email, but that's good. At least somebody's seeing something. Our 400th broadcast tonight, live broadcast, is with the one and only Dark Waters. Check out the website, iamdarkwaters.com. Look, if you got a question, you want to talk to him, you could call in too. It's 1-800-588-0335. We don't get a lot of time. I think I try to at least have you on once a year. I'd like to have you on twice a year, but I know you're a busy man. But this is fun, man. Like, we got to do this stuff more often, and I definitely want to come down there and hang out with you. And I know I got a few listeners that live down there as well, so we're going to hang out down there. I'll go check out all the magic shops while you tell me not to. You know, I feel like you're my big brother sometimes.
I'll take you there. That's no big deal. I'll take you to the people where you're going to be good. Nobody's going to hurt anybody. Nobody's going to do anything. But hey, man, it's very few people. Like, I don't even stay up this late anymore. So it's very few people whose show you hear me on anymore, and you're one of those people. Anytime you call me, you need me, I'll be there, bro. So I'm 100% on the train. You just gotta send me a message. Hey, bro, I need you, and I'm there. I'll come running.
I actually have done that once, and I remember you was like, "All right, let me get a cigar, and I'll be right there." You just had to light up a cigar, and he was right there. That's pretty cool. So what do we got next? What do you want us to listen to next?
I want you to take a listen to, it's called Monsters Among Us. This is a story, a Bigfoot encounter that happened to a gentleman in the middle of the snowstorm that hit the greater Atlanta area. I think it was in 2015 or 2016. But you remember they had a snowstorm that hit Atlanta and everybody was stranded on the side of the road. People were walking, the kids were trapped in the car. It's a couple of years ago. And this is this guy's Bigfoot encounter that happened. And it's one of the more terrifying Bigfoot encounters that I've heard recently.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll just go ahead and play this thing then. Let's get terrified.
Narrated by Dark Waters. Dark personally talks to these people that report these events. Sometimes he tells his personal story, and sometimes, every now and then, he'll play their actual voices. But what you're about to hear are stories of true accounts that happened. Keep in mind, Dark doesn't report and produce every story he is told. In fact, through a careful selection process, he has his own methods of detecting if the person reporting the experience is telling him true accounts of what they experienced, or if they're not. Prepare yourself for what you're about to hear. For more stories like these, head over to IamDarkWaters.com for more content from the King of Horror, Dark Waters.
After the massive traffic jams that shut down highways, Atlanta is starting to go down the road to recovery. Today, drivers began retrieving the vehicles they'd abandoned on the side of icy, jam-packed roads. The governor took the heat for failing to prepare for the minor snow and ice storm that crippled the city. We have two reports from Atlanta tonight. First, Mark Strassman. Mark?
Scott, major roads are open again, but most schools and businesses remain closed. 2 days after 2 inches of snow and ice paralyzed the city, Georgia's governor admitted he blew it. Georgia Governor Nathan Deal had defended the state's response for 2 days, but he admitted today that he had not closely followed the changing forecast.
I did not know that it had been upgraded and a more serious warning had been issued.
At 3:22 Monday afternoon, the National Weather Service put out a winter storm warning, 1 to 2 inches of snow in north central Georgia. But overnight, at 3:38 Tuesday morning, the update included all of metro Atlanta and its 5 million residents. At 7:20 that morning, Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed tweeted, "Atlanta, we are ready for the snow." It began to fall around 11 a.m. Soon after, the governor tweeted this photo of him presenting Atlanta's mayor with a portrait as Georgian of the Year. By 2 p.m. Tuesday, schools, businesses, and government offices began to empty at once. The gridlock and accidents made it impossible to treat the roads with salt. Children spent the night in schools, stranded commuters in store aisles and their cars.
Yes, we did not have adequate preparation to encounter the storm as it came in the time frame in which it came. Yes, I accept responsibility for that.
Bogan Mitchell had to abandon his car and walk home on the ice. Do you think they just weren't paying attention?
I just don't think they took it seriously. I don't think they really considered how bad it could happen to the city and that they were just lax in their response time.
I want to know the worst thing about being trapped in a snowstorm. Now, you may think it's the bitter cold temperatures or the violent wind bursts that hit you in your face, but in all actuality, it's the isolation. You see, in those type of situations, your mind begins to wander, playing your decisions over and over again in this endless loop. At least that's how it was for me when a snowstorm hit Georgia a few years ago. You see, I worked in Cartersville, Georgia, about a 45-minute commute with traffic from my hometown of Marietta. That day in the news, they predicted that we were going to have a snowstorm, but overall, they undersold what was about to happen. They claimed it would be a few inches of snow and that everything would be fine. And although I feel as if the governor let us down, looking back on it, there was no way that they could have predicted everything that was going to happen. So I've been at work all day. 4 o'clock rolls around, my boss Jan comes in and says he needs us all to go home early because he's been watching the news and he's starting to see these massive traffic jams. Jan tells us, God bless you, and get home safely. Now me, I hadn't been watching the news or listening to the radio. I had a very important report that I needed to get out, so I just wasn't paying full attention. I ended up leaving work at 4:45. way behind the gun when it came to getting into the traffic. And I found myself low on gas. After sitting in traffic for about 25 minutes, I was finally able to reach a gas station. When I pulled up to the pump, I discovered that the credit card machine wasn't working and they were only taking cash. Let me tell you something. Walking into that gas station, this feeling rushed over me, an overwhelming sense that something big was about to happen. And looking back on that moment now that everything has transpired, what I was sensing was correct. And I should have heeded that warning. I get inside the gas station and everyone's on their cell phone. I'm overhearing conversations about people being stuck at work, kids that are stranded at their schools, and teachers having to stay behind because parents can't get to them. And I remember thinking to myself in that moment, thank God my family is in Florida. I don't know what the hell I would do if I found myself in that situation. My son stranded at school, my wife stranded at work, and I had to choose who I was going to go and get. That would be a horrific choice to make. If the emotions inside of that gas station were a microcosm for what people were feeling in a greater metro area, then I knew exactly what was going on. An overall sense of panic could be felt. It was tangible. People were on edge. And I wanted nothing more than to get out of that madness and get home. So in that moment, I devised a plan that would get me around all the traffic. And this plan would lead to me encountering something horrific, an experience unlike anything I could have ever imagined. My plan was to avoid all the traffic by cutting through Red Top Mountain State Park. And it should have been easy. Instead of merging on the interstate from Old Alabama Road, I would just go straight. Take Red Top Mountain Road to Glade Street down into Acworth, then take Main Street south, and I would be able to get to Marietta. In my mind, taking this route avoided all the congestion. Now, as I stood there pumping gas, that overwhelming feeling of panic came back again. This gut feeling that something was wrong. But I wrote it off, thinking it was nothing more than a combination of everyone else's emotions combined with this bitter cold that I was feeling. Now, the first issue I ran into was pulling out of the freaking parking lot. Traffic was crazy. And then when I finally got around to the other side of I-75, which took me to drive on the median a bit, there was literally no traffic. Was the road icy? Yes. But it wasn't anything I couldn't handle. Now, crossing Bethany Bridge was another story. That was a little dicey. And when I get off the bridge, there's a park ranger parked alongside of the road. Lights flash and he flags me down and says, listen, the sun will be going down soon and the road ahead is getting really bad. Black ice is everywhere. It would be best if you turn around and went the other way. And my question to him was real simple. Well, sir, are you officially closing the roads? He raises his brow and he looks at me straight in the eyes and says, no, sir, the governor would have to declare a state of emergency in order for that to happen. But my experience tells me that you might get up the mountain, but going down is going to be a major problem. It's probably best if you head back. Now, I wasn't trying to be an asshole to this dude. Honestly, I wasn't. I just wanted to go home. But I know what I said came across a little assholish. I tell him, listen, I'm a grown man and I can handle the consequences of my actions. I'll be fine. Then I rolled the window up and pulled off. Looking through the rearview mirror as I drove away, he just shook his head and talked to the next driver behind me. But I was determined to get home out of the storm. The uphill ride was a bit slippery, and I was forced to creep along the roadway. That, combined with the snow really falling, was making my vision limited. But coming downhill on Glade Road is where I really had the problem. I hit a patch of ice. The car's just sliding down the freaking road. I'm twisting and turning the wheel, trying to guide it in the right direction when I get to the intersection of Glade Road and Webster. Now, I didn't want to go into a ditch, so I cut the wheel hard left, hit the gas, thinking that I was going to spin towards the middle of the intersection, hit the brakes, and at least I wouldn't go off the road, right? Wrong. The car whips around, does a full 360 spin off the road, slams into a tree on the opposite side of the road. Look, the engine's running, but the car's smoking. I'm perfectly fine, but outside the wind is whipping, and it's no longer snow that's falling, it's wind-driven snow. Now, I was physically fine, but I would soon realize
that this was only the beginning of one of the most terrifying nights of my life. The first thing I did was reach for my cell phone to call a tow truck, but the network was busy. But little did I know at that time that the greater metro Atlanta area was in the grip of one of the worst snowstorms in its history. I tried the phone 3 more times, but the network was busy. So I stepped outside of the car to take a closer look at the damage. Ruthless blasts of wet snow and ice bombarded my face as I stood there. I could smell the fluid leaking from the engine, and that's when this harsh reality set in. Smoke began to fill the interior of my vehicle, and I knew I was screwed. And the only way that I could get to help was to walk to a neighborhood about 3 to 4 miles away, downhill in this weather. Now, in that moment, I start to freak out just a little bit. And I need you to understand why. It's not like I'm on the side of some busy highway. There are no cars passing by. And on top of that, there's no street lights. If you don't believe me, look this shit up. It was pitch black out there. Lucky for me, I always kept an emergency kit in the trunk of my car, which included a flashlight. But turning that flashlight on while it was snowing made it even more freaking creepy. I felt like I was in that movie, what's the name of it? Silent Hill. The one where there was this crazy ash falling from the sky. Remember how quiet and eerie it was in that movie? That's exactly what I was experiencing. Every time I took a footstep, it crunched and echoed on the snow. But as I reached into my glove compartment, grabbed my revolver, closed and locked the doors to my car, I resolved in my mind that I was going to make that 3 to 4 mile walk no matter what. And I was going to find someone's front door, knock on it, and get help. Turning and walking away from the car, I remembered I had my thermos in my trunk filled with boiling hot coffee from the gas station. So I hustled back to the trunk, opened it up, grabbed the thermos, and slid it down into my jacket. And the heat from that thermos felt absolutely amazing, warming the core of my body. And for the first 200 yards, I was hopeful. But that's when it happened. The first twig snapped. And in that dark, still night, it didn't even sound like wood breaking. It was so loud that it had a ring to it. Shining the flashlight in the direction of the noise, nothing could be seen but snow. I take another few steps, this time moving slowly and softly, but each step crunches loudly, echoing in the still night. Then I hear it again, crack! The clear sound of wood being snapped. This time is coming from in front of me on the left-hand side. Hello? Hello, is someone there? I speed up my pace, moving to the far right side of the road. And that damn flashlight made things worse. I can't explain it, but this feeling came over me. You know that feeling like you're being surrounded? Now, in that moment, I didn't have any evidence. All I heard was twigs and branches snapping. For all I knew, it could have been tree branches snapping from the weight of the snow. But in that moment, I felt panic, this intense need and urge to run. But I didn't. I stayed calm and I quickened my pace, each step sounding louder and louder. Before I knew it, I was trotting along the side of the road. The ground was so slippery, snow battering my face. In front of me, darkness. Behind me, the same thing. And then the growling started. First, behind me. Then another growl up ahead of me, coming from the left-hand side of the road. I moved off the road down into a ditch, but there was no more fighting the panic. I started to run. 15 yards later, blam, I'm face down in the snow and mud. As I lay there face down, my body shivering from the cold, the coffee from a thermos spills down my pants. And I can't explain it to you, but that heat against my skin jolted me somehow. I was mad. I rolled over my back, pulled my revolver, and fired 2 shots into the air. Blam, blam. Standing, I screamed, "You might get me, but I'm gonna put a bullet in your ass." The sound of the gunfire still ringing in my ear. Now listen, from that moment, I just started to react. And some of it's still blurry. But I know for a fact, after those shots, I heard something big moving back away from me in the woods on the left-hand side of the road. And I made up my mind that was going to be my last time running. I didn't want to risk slipping on the ice, breaking an ankle, or even worse, breaking a leg. So I walked slowly on the right-hand side of the road. And each step I took was being shadowed by something behind me. It only seemed to move when I moved. And then again, from the left-hand side of the road, I hear limbs snapping, this time further off in the distance. That's when it hit me. Something wanted me off of that road and into those woods. I was being herded, guided, shifted off path, and no matter what, I was not going into those damn woods. Thoughts of my wife and son flashed through my mind as my feet and hands turned numb, making it hard to hold on to the revolver. And I knew I had only made it about 500 to 600 yards away from my vehicle. Then I hear another growl, this time coming from my left, directly on the opposite side of the road. And when the light shined on it, squatting down on the side of the road was this hairy creature, black fur, long, wide lips like something from a cartoon, and this huge brow. It was there for about 8 seconds in the light, then gone. Remember, I told you I felt like something was herding me off the road. That was my confirmation. Not only was I being herded, but I was being hunted. And what I saw was huge. The revolver wouldn't have did it a damn thing. Only 4 bullets left. The spilled coffee is now starting to freeze, making me colder and colder. And the only thing I can do is to keep walking. I start to encourage myself, keep walking. All you gotta do is just keep walking. Don't even look, just walk. If it comes at you, shoot it, but you gotta walk. I swear to you, these things were terrorizing me, trying to get me to go off the road. But when I turned around to look, I didn't see anything. So again, I fired around in the air. And this horrific cat and mouse game went on for 30 more minutes. I became mentally exhausted. Physically, my body wanted to shut down. When I started to see this light ahead, it's in the middle of the road about 150 yards away. I'm thinking to myself, there's no way these things can possibly have lights. Lord, please let this be a person. I hear a growl coming from up ahead by the light, and I think to myself, oh my God, I am going to die. That's when that light begins darting back and forth. Then I hear shotgun fire. Boom! Boom! Help! Help! I'm here! Stuffing the revolver in my pocket, I take off running down the middle of the road. And when I meet up with that light, it's a park ranger. His eyes big as Dallas. He says, we gotta get inside. We gotta get inside. This man pulls me by the arm, and 20 minutes later, I find myself inside this small building along the right-hand side of the road. Fire's burning. And when the shock wears off, I realize that this is the same ranger that warned me at the bridge. Tired and cold, I start to fall asleep. When I wake up, it's 5 a.m. It's still snowing. And he's sitting in a chair by the window, shotgun in hand. Thank you. Thank you, I said. Thank you so much. When he turned towards me, the look on his face was one of worry. Don't thank me yet. We need the sun to come up. And when I looked out of the window, I could see these huge dark figures moving. What are they? I said. We call them Bigfoot or the man of the woods. They can be found all through this area. But they're normally not this aggressive. I think it's got something to do with this storm. Now, 2 hours later, he and I are still talking when the sun comes up. Phones still not working. But his truck was. And he drove me out of there. Took me all the way home. During that snowstorm, so many cars were lost that my insurance company, State Farm, took 3 days to get a tow truck out to my vehicle. 2 days after that, the adjuster calls me, and he just wants to go over the particulars of my accident. According to him, the damage that I described to him wasn't the same damage sustained to the vehicle. He went on to say, based on what I told him, the vehicle should have been fixable. Instead, he told me that the hood of the car had been peeled back and opened like a Coca-Cola can. Windows smashed in. And he claimed that the engine had been displaced downward by 13 inches. Almost as if someone had taken a tree and beat the hell out of the engine. As for me, the experience left me extremely traumatized. For example, I used to love taking a scenic route home, twisting, turning, beautiful back roads. But once I came to the realization that there were real monsters among us, that all changed.
Wow, man, that's a really good one. That is a really good one. You know, that's a good story, James. We're going to go straight into break here. Dark Waters is with us tonight. Apparently, I think I put it in here, if you're in the northern hemisphere, if you face your feet towards the southeast, you should be able to see the meteor shower. I don't know. Let me see those pictures. We'll be right back with Dark Waters. I Am Dark Waters is the website. Fantastic stuff. Stay with us.
Joseph Roop is your host. Pull back the blinds and uncover the truth. This is Lighting the Void Radio.
You're listening to The Fringe FM.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Hey, I'm J.M. DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Root and his show, Lighting the Void.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you're interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to GetTheTea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. GetTheTea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Looking for things that go bump in the night? I am Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange Radio, reminding you to tune in to the Fringe FM this Halloween season and listen to all things paranormal, supernatural, and downright scary. Join the Fringe FM Discord channel and chat live with your favorite host and Fringe friends. Whether it's All Hallows Eve, Dia de los Muertos, or Sam Hain, it's gonna get spooky up in here. So scream your heads off with the Fringe FM. Stay strange.
This is Dan Lopez with Spiritual Warrior Today Radio, and when I'm battling demons, I listen to Lighting the Void with my man Joe Root right here on thefringe.fm.
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Right, me old Chiners. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me babble. If, like me, you found your way to Lighting the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of the fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
In the year 2018, this station produced one of the most terrifying tales ever broadcast on radio. Bigfoot Speaks, Interview with the Sasquatch. This year, we bring you an even more terrifying tale to send chills down your spine. Scary. One night only, October the 31st. Be there if you dare.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada.
Well, the Dark Waters is here with us. Man, I almost feel like I should have saved this one for the last week, next week, right? Because it's some good stuff. That Bigfoot story, it was epic, brother. And I see you're still using my old voiceover intros. When you used to hit me up and say, would you do some intros for my show? Absolutely. I want to bring, honestly, James, I'd like to see the South take back over underground radio again. There was a time, and if y'all remember it correctly, that the South did rule underground radio. Now it's all East and West and all this other stuff. But, yeah, that was a good one, because I was definitely feeling it. If I was out in the woods, I've taken shots at things just like that. Now, people say, oh, you would shoot. Yeah, Yeah, I'd be trying to kill whatever that was after me. All of them. I got an arsenal at my house, too. I know that sounds terrible, but us Southerners, we're not afraid to use our guns, I guess, unless we have to. But anyways, man, I'm just rambling. Do you want to play another story, or you got something on your mind you want to talk about first?
No, I was just going to tell everybody that when you find yourself in a situation like that, I think the most significant thing of that story, and it's the most significant thing that he relayed to me from his encounter, was the urge to run and what it took for him to resist the urge to run. And there was a part of the story that I cut out because he said it was too personal. But his grandfather would tell him when he was a little boy that, because he used to always run from dogs, as a kid. His grandfather would tell him, he said, man, son, if you behave like prey, an animal will treat you like prey. So if a dog is come running after you and you start running, it's going to treat you like it's prey. So don't run. And that night, while he was alone, walking on the side of that road, snow falling all around him, and he's trying to be herded off the road by these Bigfoots, in his mind, all he heard was his grandfather's voice saying, if you behave like prey, they're going to treat you like prey. And that's what kept him hovering around the road. Now, he wasn't directly on the road the whole time. There was times where he went off into the ditch and then walked himself back on. But that's what kept him moving forward, is that he didn't want to behave like prey. And I believe that had he allowed himself to be kind of ran off into the woods and panicked, that night they would have never heard from him again, and I think that's what happens to a lot of people who are out in the woods, who are hikers and hunters and bow hunters. I think they get out into the woods and they lose kind of the sense of, that I'm man and I'm going to stand my ground. And they fall into that prey mentality. And then the next thing you know, they go missing. Yeah, that fight or flight mentality. Next thing you know, they go missing. And that's the most important thing, because the guys that I've spoken to who've had Dogman encounters, Bigfoot encounters, the ones who kind of held their ground and backed out and got away, not run away, but just say, okay, look, you go your way, I go my way, or I'm going to shoot you, but I don't want to shoot you, but I'm going to back out and you back out. They were fine. It's the ones that took off running, that were chased and the cars rammed into. And also it's the ones who were just needlessly aggressive towards these creatures that really, really have had problems. There's a guy in the Carolinas who's had Bigfoot on his property for a very long time. And just recently he started getting agitated with them and started shooting at him. And man, they took his truck, flipped it over in his driveway, and pretty much destroyed his truck. And, I'm in the insurance business, and we start talking. He says, James, how do I put the insurance claim in on this? I said, bro, you're not going to pay that claim.
Bigfoot attack, right? They ain't going for that.
I was like, bro, they're not going to pay that claim. I said, you better not tell him. He was like, but he started sending me pictures like, look at this. I said, man, they're not going to pay that claim. There's no way to explain. There was no tornado. Insurance is all about being covered by one of the perils: fire, lightning, hailstorm, windstorm, mudslide. Like, dude, your truck is not getting paid for, bro. You screwed.
Just give it up, right? Like,
just give it up, bro. Yeah. Don't even bother calling them. And so and it kind of leads to the fact that these creatures do have personalities, just like human beings have personalities and personality traits. Like, if you cool about leaving them the hell alone, for the most part, you're fine. But if you want to be Billy Bad behind and start a war, a Bigfoot war, God forbid, you start trying to deal with Dogman in a way that you shouldn't, you're going to get what you're asking for. And I tell people that all the time. There are people who go out, I want to know where Dogman is. And I tell them, I got a map on my website with exact locations where people have seen things. You'll see a red dot, go to the red dot. And there's been countless people who went to one of the red dots and it's like, okay, I got to the area and the woods are just quiet. Yeah, because you're in the location. Well, I thought you were lying. No, I'm not lying. I'm just tired of y'all harassing me. Go to the spot and tell me what you see. So you just can't go out there looking for trouble. You don't go out there looking for trouble. Here, some people say that in New Orleans, like Dogman / Rougarou, it's all about your intent. When you're there, like if you're up to no good, then you're going to get no good. If you're just passing by, then you get a passing by encounter. If you're out there to hurt or harm something, then you're going to receive that hurt or harm. And I'm starting to believe that because it's one of the things that it's a common golden thread that runs through these encounters, with the exception of the larger Dogman. There's something wrong with that thing. Like the very, very large one, 9 to 10 feet, maximum 11 feet when it's up on its hind legs, super muscular, head extremely big. That thing, I believe, is a genetically modified monster. I don't think that's the original Dogman that people are seeing, because some of the Dogmen that people are seeing in the Kentuckys are like foxes, and some of them like Doberman pinchers, and there's some of them that are like just a black wolf. But this other thing, I think something's up with that thing. I really think that's something that's man-made, and it behaves like something that's designed to go to war. It behaves like something that's programmed to behave a certain way. So,
like it's been genetically designed to do
what it does, right? Yeah. And I wouldn't put it past that. They got something running around in the woods and testing it and saying, "Oh, okay, well, we can call it back when we want to." But you mess around and deal with it and do the wrong thing, then you got a problem, and it's all covered up. And I think that's what happens to a lot of these missing cases is people are running into things that are genetically modified in the woods. And
like all the missing 411 cases you're talking about?
Yeah, some of those, and then some of the more recent missing person cases that just don't make any sense. I think they're running into things in the woods that they're not prepared to deal with, and they're reacting in ways that just trigger these things. I don't want to name the names of the cases because I don't want the families being like, "What the hell is this guy talking about? My son died." Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into that, but there are a number of missing person cases recently where it just doesn't add up what happened to the person. It just doesn't add up.
You got one of these. Let's see. We've got some other ones that you might want to play. I've got Running with Evil, Get Out of the Mud. It's up to you, man. Whatever you're feeling.
We can go in any one of those. Get It Out the Mud. It's got a bunch of foul language in it. I didn't mean to sing you that one.
Well, it's pretty late night anyways, but we can do, what about Running with Evil? That's good.
Yeah, let's do that one. That's a Dogman encounter south of the border. Do that one. Let me preference that one with a little bit of something background for people. So, we used to be really, really close friends until he got us into this beef with the Italian mafia down here. So a really close friend of mine, and I still consider him a friend. I just can't, how, Joe, you got somebody that they make decisions that you just like, yo, I can't believe you made that decision. You disappoint me. You hurt me with the decision you make. They didn't necessarily do it to hurt you, but they did something so dangerous and so reckless that it's like, man, I couldn't believe you would do something like that. So I can't really be your friend like that anymore, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
So that's how my relationship with this guy is at this point in time. But prior to the events that transpired over the past couple of years, he was like an older brother of mine, and ex-DEA, FBI agent. Through him, I met military contractors. I met Secret Service agents. I met freaking special operators, because this guy's the real deal. Like he's the real deal. And so through those relationships, I started talking to people about Dark Waters, the brand, what I do. And these guys started telling me stories like from all around the world, dude. There's a number of my stories that are from outside of the country that come from the special operators that I met through him, that I don't necessarily tell who they are, but I tell the stories. Well, this particular story came from one of his partners that was undercover and went undercover in a cartel, and it pertains to Dogman. You guys are going to really, really enjoy this one.
All right, so we're going to do the Running with Evil.
Running with Evil. Yep.
Here we go.
Now, there are a couple of things that I'm 100% certain of as it pertains to Dogman. Number one, they're not a fucking pet. You can't touch them, you don't walk up to them, and they don't allow you to play with their pups. Number two, they will fuck your entire world up. How do I know? Because I've experienced it. And number three, they can be injured and killed, but it's extremely difficult to do. Why? Because these things not only have above normal intelligence, but they're fast and strong. And by strong, I mean extremely strong. Again, I tell you this from firsthand experience. Let me tell you a little bit about me. 2014, I went undercover working as a DEA agent, a joint task force between the DEA, Border Patrol, and ATF. By 2016, I had survived undercover inside the cartel longer than any other U.S. law enforcement agent. It was back then that I contacted Dog Waters with my stories about Dogman. He and I connected through a mutual friend who was an FBI agent out of San Diego, California. And I know for a fact he's disclosed that gentleman's stories to you because I've heard him on this channel. Mid-2015, I was involved in an incident along the U.S. border that hit the national news. In order to keep my cover and make sure that I stayed alive, I did a number of things that under normal circumstances I would not have done. In turn, by mid-2016, the majority of the people involved in this task force felt I was compromised, and the only person that was supporting me was my boss. Now, to some of you listening to this story, this point is completely irrelevant. But for others who will hear this story, it's very important that I say this. If it wasn't for him, I would have died in the hands of the cartel. So to that man, I'm eternally grateful and thankful. Now that's all out of the way, let's get back to Dogman. So the deeper I worked my way undercover into the cartel, it became harder and harder for me to break away and communicate with the task force. So I devised a communication method that involved leaving notes at the base of certain trees. Now, a lot of this was being covered up in American news, there were these trees. They were called rape trees. And unfortunately, these are the places where women and some children were being smuggled into America, were being raped and molested. After the evil deed had been done, their panties or underwear were taken and hung up in the trees. And it was at the base of one of these trees where I was crouched down, digging a hole in order to put one of my messages, where I encountered Dogmen. Back in those days, our base of operation was Santa Cruz, Mexico. Now, I was just west of the city, like I said, digging at the base of one of those trees, when I hear this screeching sound. Turning and looking around, there are 3 of these things running full speed on all 4s towards the U.S. border. Now, in order for you to understand this, everyone has seen a standard-sized dog. And then majority of people in the world have seen a larger breed of dog. But what I need you to understand is, think about the largest breed of dog you've ever seen. Make it 7 to 8 times bigger. That's exactly what I was looking at, running full speed. And in that moment, I knew this was no regular dog or a wolf. It was way too big. These things were moving at least 30 to 40 miles per hour. And I found myself no more than 75 to 80 yards away from them. Keep in mind, this is broad daylight, and I see these things. Now I'm there trying to keep as still as possible. And honestly, I don't even think I took a breath until they were out of sight. The next morning, I'm at one of our hubs. And so you understand what a hub is? Essentially, it's an excavation site where there's this gigantic hole dug into the ground. One road leading in, one road leading out. These hubs are where busloads of people and narcotics came into. And the reason why there were gigantic holes dug into the ground, because those were the entrances to the series of tunnels that went underground headed towards the U.S. border. So I'm there, and I asked one of the men who I know has been around for an extremely long time, Angelo, have you ever seen any big dogs or wolves running around? Understand, Angelo had been working for the cartel since he was 13 years old. In America, we have gangster rap and gangsters, right? Angelo was not a gangster. This dude was a mass murderer. He looks at me with these cold, dead eyes and says, yes, that they see them all the time and they cross the border into the United States. He goes on to explain the rules of engagement for the cartel with Dogmen. Number 1, you don't shoot them unless they attack something of high value, narcotics, or individuals that are crossing the border. The second rule, if you see them, run away, drive away, swim away, but get away. Number 3, if you can't get away from them, shoot them until you kill them. After that, I didn't hear or see anything about these creatures for about 6 months. That was until I was moved further east over to the little small town of El Diablo. It was Saturday morning, and we were instructed to transport 2 pregnant Chinese women from El Diablo up north to the U.S. border. Now listen, this wasn't the first time I had done this, but this was the first time that the group I was with was so heavily armed. Typically, we travel with AR-15s, AK-47s, and sidearms. This time, we were given 2 Jeeps. Both of these Jeeps were equipped with belt-fed mounted machine guns on the back. Now, I can't even tell you who these 2 Chinese women were. But what I can confidently say to you is this. Whoever wanted them to get across the border has spent a shitload of money. Why? Because they were being treated like royalty. You gotta understand, the average individual, man, woman, or child that was being transported across the U.S. border was given a gallon of water and 3 energy bars. These women literally had their own tents, not small tents, gigantic tents with cooked food, fresh water, vegetables, and fruit. The crew and I pretty much hang around all day smoking cigarettes and burning time. And about 10 o'clock that night, we leave under the cover of darkness. Everyone on the team is equipped with night vision goggles. Now picture this. We're driving. No headlights. Slowly working our way about 15, 20 miles an hour towards the border. And I'd say we had left Diablo about no more than 25 minutes prior when we start hearing this screeching sound. And then this growling. A growling so loud that you could hear it over the sound of the engine. That's when the Jeep behind us starts letting loose. Yak, 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 yak. I mean, you can hear the machine gun ripping. I stand up in the passenger seat, turn around and take a look, and it's 5 of these things barreling down on our ass. That's when a gunner in our Jeep lets loose. Yak, 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 yak. Panic ensues. The 2 women are screaming. Now we're flying along this rough terrain going about 40 to 50 miles per hour in pitch black darkness. And I need you to understand, we're not talking about driving along flat surfaces. We're talking about hilly, bumpy, gravelly, sliding rock terrain. The growling and screaming starts again, and then you hear the machine gun on the other Jeep go silent. For a couple of minutes, all you can hear is rifle and small arms fire. My driver is in a full-fledged panic, speeding. When I turn around and look forward, I realize this guy is driving us straight up the side of one of these hills. The tires are scratching and scraping, trying to catch a grip. And in my mind, I'm saying, holy shit, we about to flip over and die. A few minutes later, we reach the top of that hill, and he goes recklessly barreling down the other side. We literally launch off the side of an 8-foot cliff, hit the ground, bounce, go across a highway, and then back up another hill, then turn east, riding along the U.S. border. At this point in time, I'm damn near having a heart attack, and I can only imagine what those 2 pregnant women in the back seat of that Jeep were feeling and going through. We ride east for about 5 minutes, looking for a signal. A light flashes ahead of us. We stop, let the women out, drive back west, and then south. Now listen to this. When we finally come to a complete stop, the driver and the machine gunner are a nervous wreck. They're smoking cigarettes. Hands literally shaking, pacing back and forth. They can't keep still, and the 2 of these guys start bitching about coming to El Diablo at night and how they hate transporting people across the U.S. border from El Diablo because everyone knows that these creatures take that route daily. Now, nobody told me anything about this, so now I'm pissed. And I start bitching, saying, why didn't y'all tell me that we were going to encounter these creatures? They assumed I already knew. I go on to ask them what they think happened to the other Jeep, and both of them say those men are dead. A couple of days later, I'm out of El Diablo, and I'm back to Santa Cruz. I see Angelo, and I ask him, hey, did you hear about what happened to us when we were moving the Chinese women? He says yes. I went on to ask him about the men in the other Jeep, and without batting an eye, he said they're probably dead. There's no need to look for them. Now, a few weeks later, I was moved further south away from the border, and I didn't see these creatures again. But I did constantly hear stories about coyotes and spotters always encountering these creatures. Sometimes the spotters, whose job it was to look out for Border Patrol, would have full-fledged firefights trying to keep these things away from them. But after my encounter with them in the Jeep, I personally never physically saw them again with my own 2 eyes. And I'll say this to you. My time working undercover in a cartel was extremely productive. I was able to gather a treasure trove of intel about how the cartel ran its operations. Now, what most U.S. citizens don't know is that in 2017, that same intel that I gathered was used by U.S. Special Operations to bring the fucking pain to the cartel. Now, the average person gets up, goes to work, pays bills, takes care of their kids, cooks foods, takes them to school. That's what they do. But until you've run with evil people like that, you can't even begin to comprehend how important that work was. Now, as for Dogman, please believe this is not a pet. All these people running around talking about they want to hunt and track Dogman, that is the stupidest shit I've ever heard. If you're smart, you're going to leave those things the fuck alone. If not, you just have to pay the consequences.
Well, amen to that, right? Sorry about the language, y'all. We just didn't have time to edit the stuff, but it's late night anyways. All the kiddies should be in bed, hopefully.
Yeah, you need to have your kids in bed with these stories. You know, I don't know if we got to go to break soon, but I want to say this about this story. One of the most prevalent things that came out of those conversations was the conditions at the border and what was really going on at the U.S. border. The media will have you believe that it's like Mexican nationals, and like the media just wants you to think it's like Mexican people crossing our border. Man, I almost said his name. Well, basically what Mitch was explaining to me was that they smuggled Chinese, Japanese, they were smuggling Indians, they smuggled Russians, Polish people. It's not what the media portrays crossing the border as the people who cross the border. It's nowhere near what you think it is. So like the big groups of people that you see running across that they put on TV, those are like the hordes that they send, you know, where Border Patrol can catch them. But the real high value, high dollar people, they're going different routes where there's no Border Patrol. And we're talking about rich people sending family members into America to live here. And that was one of the things that came out of those conversations with T. Mitch. But the other thing that really kind of scared me was what Mitch kept explaining about how the Dogmen were using certain areas repeatedly. And if you go look at the map of our border, you'll see these state parks that nestle up to our border, about 3 or 4 of them, and they're federalized land. They use that particular land to cross back and forth religiously. I mean, religiously.
Wow.
And they're cross, and it's those spots. And then there are people who know in our government who know these things crossing those spots. So the whole Dogman thing where people is like, oh, why don't they do anything? Nobody knows. Oh, trust me, people know. Lots of people know that we have that problem. I don't know why they don't do anything about it, but lots of freaking people know.
Yeah, I'm getting some questions too. I need to go back through the chat. Someone was asking, are there any sightings, like big time sightings around the New Orleans area? I think if you go to the website, you have all that stuff on there, right? Do you have the maps like you were talking about?
Yeah, go to the website, click the chat room, and then you'll see the map of the sightings around New Orleans area. Kind of scroll down a little bit, you'll see the chat room where it kind of shows where everybody can chat, then you'll see the map. But yeah, there are plenty of sightings in the New Orleans surrounding areas surrounding New Orleans. Yeah. So what I mean by that is the 100-mile, 150-mile radius surrounding New Orleans. Yes, plenty of sightings.
I mean, there's a lot of sightings here too. I just wonder if, you know, like if a lot of people go to these areas, but do you think that sometimes when it comes to cryptids, do you think that there's an attachment to people, like certain people or families? Like maybe that's why some people don't have the experiences and others do. For example, like one of the biggest stories that really got my attention with you was the siege of Lockett Ranch. And that seemed like something that had been in the family. I got this kind of hint that battle had been going on for a long time, so to speak, you know?
Well, that was something that they stumbled upon in that family. It wasn't that it was a battle that was going on a long time. It was just something that they stumbled upon. They didn't know that existed. And then they came to realize it because they went and started logging on the property, trying to take profits off the land. And they uncovered it, and they started having a boatload of problems. And honestly, that land to this day is still occupied by those creatures. I even put the location of that story out. It's that land out. It's on a story called Never Go Full Retard. where a guy harassed the hell out of me and he wanted to know where Cedar Locket Ranch would happen. I was like, bro, you can't get to the exact property because the exact property is underwater. I was like, but you can go to the area that was on the backside of the property. So you can go there anytime you want. And he went, and he didn't make it no more than about 3 or 4 miles into the woods where they're known to reside, and he had to leave out of there because he knew something was watching him. And he was like, bro, I used to think you were lying. I was like, bro, I don't have a reason to lie to you. Why would I take all the time and energy to make this, to create a lie? It's like, that doesn't make any sense. So you have people who have real flesh and blood encounters, and then you have some people who encounter interdimensional beings that mimic Dogman. And well, kind of like we alluded to earlier, where they pretend to be a Dogman or pretend to be a Bigfoot. But those people who have the real encounters, they know. Like the last one I heard just recently, the guy won't talk to me about it, but I have a buddy of mine in Kentucky named Connor. He was at a barbecue, and he calls me, whispering on the phone. He's like, hey, buddy, what you doing? I'm like, man, I'm chilling around the house smoking a cigar. He's like, I got a friend of mine over here, and he just told a story about this creature that he took a shot at in the woods. And I was like, okay, was it a Bigfoot or a Dogman? He was like, it's one of them Dogmen. And I was like, he's like, would you like to talk to him? I was like, yeah, see if you can get him to talk to me. So he walks over, and he tells the guy, hey, man, remember that story you was telling earlier? I got my buddy on the phone, James. He deals with these kind of things. He would love to talk to you. The guy's like, well, what does he do? He's like, well, he's got a YouTube channel, and he's real well known for talking about these things. Why don't you tell him your story? And the guy's like, nah, I don't want to tell it. He was like, you sure? He was like, nah, I don't want to tell it. And I was like, well, ask your friend, did he shoot it? And he was like, yeah, he took a shot at it. I said, well, he's going to call me back eventually. I said, because he's already, if he shot it and he hit it, it's just getting started. So just tell him that this is just starting. It's not the end of it. And I need to call Connor back just to see what's going on. But it's one of those things when you deal with Dogman, like if you can get away from that encounter without, hurting or harming them, and you can just go on about your business, you're in a good situation. It's like best case scenario. But man, Lord Jesus, if you start shooting, you got a problem.
Yeah,
and
that's when things get hairy, huh?
Yeah, buddy, that's when you got a problem on your freaking hands. So,
well, that's the thing, man. Nobody's ever brought a body, and so look, if these things can take bullets, they either can take bullets or they're not there. And I'm gonna go with they can take bullets, like they've been shot at before. Maybe we just don't have the right stuff to take them down. I don't know.
No, we got the right stuff to take them down. It's just that the people who tried to take one out of the woods didn't get too far with it for multiple reasons. Number one, because it's more than one. And number two, the 1 or 2 people that I've talked to that's gathered evidence has had their evidence taken from them. That's when I realized how dangerous that topic was, is when I started talking to people who nowadays you would quote unquote call them a whistleblower, but people who were saying, hey man, you really need to be careful about what you say. Cause you're one of the few people who are really talking too much about the topic, and then you're telling too much truth. And I was like, there's no such thing as too much truth. And he's like, oh really? Well, let me share some information, which is like, holy crap. And then there have been plenty of hunters in Arkansas and Tennessee, and all along the Appalachian trails who've actually shot 1 or 2 of these things and taken them down. It's just amazing how after they shot them and taken them down, that people show up out of nowhere to collect that body. And that's the problem that you're running into. Or the people who've had pictures and then get a knock on the door in the middle of the night. Or people who've had, they had it before they went to bed. It was on their system. By the time they wake up in the morning, the system is corrupted and the data's gone. So there's a little bit more to this than what we know or what the public knows.
Yeah, I believe you on that too. I'm wondering though, like what DJ's saying in the chat here is like, well, what is the military really doing? Surely they're experimenting with some of this. like they're using dogmen for defense or something. They could just drop them off somewhere and cover the scene up pretty quick. I mean, look, we got stuff in the sky that we can shoot out of practically space and drop it on somebody and clear out an area in seconds, you know. So, I mean, it don't take much to cover up a scene nowadays, you know.
We got things that we can drop out of space that are the equivalent of a nuclear bomb, but with no freaking radiation and no fallout. So it's not hard to believe that. Let me phrase this better, and I think I should be more specific. We know that in China there are no regulations on genetic modifications. We know in China that there are they've genetically modified humans. We know in China that they've successfully cloned humans. They've successfully cloned animals. We know that China is kind of the lab and the experimental place for some of the most elite brains and controllers of our world. So they can, whatever they want to do in China, they can get away with doing it. We know that they've genetically modified animals in China. We know that the genetic modification of the spider to create the web that they use for special military armor was done in China. So the concept of a genetically modified creature owned by a private corporation, created by a private corporation, not a government, but a private corporation, and put to use is something that's easily can be believed. We know that 90% of the things that are weapons, defense weapons, are created by private corporations. The only thing that's not private is DARPA, which is, you know, our governmental development agency that develops, you know, secret things. But even DARPA's technology is kind of leaked out to private corporations in order for it to get to the hands of the publics and put to military use, right? So if you follow the trail, you know that these are experiments. The issue is, what are they being used for and who's controlling them once it gets out of the government's hands? So it's kind of like having Big Brother knowing what everybody else is doing, and Big Brother saying, yeah, I know you're over there creating freaking giants and monsters and everything else, but we're watching you. And if we need be, we'll intercede. But they typically, I guess they're not interceding in some of the cases in the woods, and some they are. But the fact of the matter is, we know that to be true. There's evidence that that's happened. It may not be the DNA samples and the drawings of Dogman, but we know that technology has come that far.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about what you got going on too on your website. So if you go to iamdarkwaters.com, you get a membership. I'm looking at some of the stuff I don't think I have ever listened to, like the 3 Knocks. You know, we've talked about the 3 Knocks on this show. I've got to listen to that and see what that's about, because we've talked about that on the show quite a bit. I've experienced that myself. I don't know what the story is about, but that's definitely got my attention. Plus, you got some comic books here. Man, you got it going on, man. You really do.
Oh yeah, I've been extremely busy. I'm trying to transition the business model from being a one-man show. The problem with anything like this, because it's based on personality, and my personality and people love my personality, it's hard to transition it to the next phase. But we're in the process of doing our first short film. It's a Dogman short story film. That's going to be terrific. I think the first one's going to be a little rough, but I'll be the first person to really kind of do a short Dogman film. Like, they got people who did a Dogman movie. I think Beast of Bray Road movie with Linda Godfrey, but I'll probably be the first one that was on YouTube to do something like that. I got a book, Spiritual Warfare, Rules of Spiritual Warfare, that's coming. So I'm keeping busy when it comes to what I'm doing. And then I'm revamping that website to make it more of a YouTube look and feel, where it's more easily accessible. I think right now one of the problems with my website is people are like, man, I can't find the stories. And I'm like, they're there. All you gotta do is hit the search bar and type in what you want. But people don't, you know, I gotta make it a little bit more easily accessible. So I'm working on all that.
Yeah. And And what are your plans for making more albums? Are you still going to keep making those albums like you did? Because that was pretty cool, like the specialized albums. Or are you doing it different now?
No, I'm doing the albums. So those short stories that are there, that's kind of content to get people from one album to the next, because they take so much time and energy. So it's kind of like I'm giving you, freaking, an appetizer before the meal. So like for the week of Halloween, I'm going to be rolling out a 30-story album, like 30 stories, it's about to be extensive, but I'm going to roll it all out that whole week. And for the day of Halloween, it'll probably be pretty much stories all day, stories every 3-4 hours, dropping for people to listen to. I've just got a sponsor, a CBD oil sponsor, Zillus, to sponsor that one of the albums. So they're going to sponsor 10 stories to go on YouTube for free, which, I don't really put anything on YouTube except for promos because YouTube screws you over. But so I'm going to roll out some really, really good content. I mean, extremely good content, and the kind of content that runs the gambit. So it's Bigfoot, Dogman, ghosts, demons, black eye kids, everything that you want to listen to, and you're going to hear it. I mean, everything. The only thing I don't really get a lot of is aliens. Nobody calls me with alien encounters. I don't know why.
Yeah, I wonder why that is too. No, but I think for me, like, I'm starting to get where people are contacting me about stuff that they're having, and I try to send them your way, but most of it has to do with dabbling, man, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show. And I'm just like, I dabbled, and I know I shouldn't have. Now I got all this stuff happening, and it's like, I think I've gotten like 10 of those emails in the past month, and I'm like, well, what do you want me to do about it, right? You could share your story with Dark Waters, and I'm sure he'll believe you and retell it, but whatever happens to you is on you. Don't say I didn't warn you. It's not like I don't want to help them, but I mean, how many times can you warn somebody until it's like, well, sorry about your luck, you know what I'm saying?
But at the end of the day, people want power, and they'll do anything to get the power and the results that they want. So people want the shortcut. They want the shortcut to love. They want the shortcut to money. They want the shortcut. So unfortunately, that's a process that people go through. It's no different than, somebody as a young man going through the process of becoming a procrastinator and then learning the penalties of procrastinating, right? Like on a spiritual level, you go through the get rich quick, I want to get what I want now, instant gratification side, where I need to have this now. And so people go after things that they want in the moment now, and they're willing to make whatever deals and do whatever rituals and whatever, but they have to go through that growth process. They don't realize that you're at a turning point where you can choose to take the left-hand path or the right-hand path. They don't understand that because there's nobody there telling them, look, well, you can dabble in this and it's going to take you down the left-hand path. The next thing you know, you're full Luciferian, or you think you are, or you can actually go through the processes of life and grow and manifest and learn the things that allow you to sustain what you want. Like, a lot of people want a relationship with somebody, but they're not the right person to be in that relationship. So you can use a magical spell to get somebody you love, but you're not going to keep that love because you're not the person. You don't love yourself enough to be in love with someone else.
That's right.
Because if you did, you wouldn't try and manipulate them with magic. You see what I'm saying? So it's one of those things to where you got to go through the process, but nobody wants to go through it. It hurts. It takes time. It's painful. Like, for me to become a better man, I had to go through a divorce. That hurts. That's painful, but I'm a better, stronger, more powerful, more loving, more kind person now because I went through that. So life puts us through these changes for a reason, but we want to short circuit and take shortcuts around them. Well, when you take the shortcut, you're still the same person. So guess what? You're going to constantly get the same result. Like, I don't hold anything against people who use magic. Like, I know a lot of people who use magic, and from hoodoo to voodoo to the 7 African powers, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I don't hold any of that against them. It's just that they're not changing. They're not growing. They're getting results as the person that they are, and they can't sustain it because each phase, each rung of the ladder that you go up, you have to change in order to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
And that would be my advice to the person, who's looking for love or looking for happiness or looking for money or looking for power. Like, you can't, in order to wield power the right way, you have to be the right person, right? Like, in business, especially in New Orleans. New Orleans is a crooked city. Like, if you're going to move around New Orleans, you're going to run into the Italian mafia, the Chinese mafia, the Vietnamese mafia, black mafia. Like, even to move in those circles, you have to understand power and the rules to power, and the rules to influence. So I know guys who right now use, what do you call it? John the Conqueror spells, in order to quote unquote conquer their enemies. Well, you temporarily conquer that person and you skip ahead of that person for a little while. Then you wonder why they come roaring back and devour you. It's because you weren't the person that you needed to be to compete with them. They went through the process.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They bid on the contracts. They did everything they needed to do. You got one thing. Oh, I want this contract with the airport. You got it. Guess what? Now you're being investigated by the FBI. Well, that's because you weren't the person you needed to be. You didn't know that contract, there's certain things you can't say on your cell phone. It's crazy. You know what I'm saying?
You can, and like, hey, look, if you want to find like a relationship or the right job or whatever, just ask, it's not going to, in my opinion, it doesn't hurt to ask for it, but don't target people, man. Like, that's where you screw up. As if you ask for it, then it'll kind of happen when it needs to happen. And it may happen in different ways that you didn't expect. But at least it doesn't mess up your growth process where you're targeting people and stuff. That's just, I don't know. I don't want to judge people on what they do, but I just think, man, like when you target specific people, you might need to look at yourself, unless they're a huge threat to you for some reason,
Yeah, but even then, I mean, there's really no threats to you. Like, I give you first example. For the longest, I had people who targeted me because of Dogmen and, Dogman Community on YouTube is like crazy.
Yeah.
For the longest, I had people who targeted me. I mean, like, they would, every opportunity they got, they would say something crazy. Every opportunity they got, they would try and besmirch and smear my name and say, oh, Dog Waters is fake and he's a liar and he's this and he's that. Even though I'm the only person whose stories you can go back and read in the comments, the person who told me the story and say, hey, he did a wonderful job with my story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I discovered from massive attacks, from some of them organic attacks, some of them bot attacks, is that at the end of the day, those people with their massive psychic energy attacks, because that's what it was. It's like all this willpower pressing against me, like all these people thinking something negative. I mean, just massive groups of people with this negative will and negative intent. Even that, because I was becoming the person that I'm supposed to be, and partly because I was already the person I was supposed to be, and then I was growing, none of that stuff would affect me. It didn't matter. Because somebody else would have committed suicide. Somebody else would have quit what they were doing because people were talking about them. And I've seen people in our industry, they can't handle the criticism of other people. And they kind of fold and they crumble and they disappear because they can't handle the criticism. And it's more than just criticism. It really is that massive psychic energy of 1,000 people constantly thinking negative about you or saying something negative. You actually feeling that through the ethos and it hitting you. And, because we're made of water, like vibrating inside of your being. But if you're the right person, then that energy comes your way and you just like, well, whatever. You guys got too much time on your hands. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you spend all that time worrying about me?
Honestly, like, that's why, one of the reasons why you still got my respect, because I feel the same way. Like, when you're being authentic and genuine with yourself and you're being true to yourself, sometimes it rattles people. And it always will. But, we got to roll out of here. And I will say this, man, you still do some of the best, not if the best storytelling work on the web. A lot of people know it. I know it. And I'm glad that you spent some time with us tonight, man. It was really cool to hang out with you again on the show.
Dude, that went too fast, bro. Like, I was just really getting rolling.
It always does when you're having a good time. It always does. But yeah, we got to roll out of here. You guys check out the website, iamdarkwaters.com. Please don't copy the show without written permission, especially on YouTube. Music was by Chronox and Bundy. Big shout out to Dark Waters for coming on tonight. Tomorrow night, Linda Godfrey will be on here and with us for the first time. Another cool show we're going to get to have. And I want to give a shout out to Pacho, Don, Dan, Eric Markham, Jeremy Scott, all of you in the chat room. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.
Close the window, lock the door, start the party going up and going. Hey, hey, let's all get gay, the stuff to share. Everybody just pass your glass, hold the jug but not too fast. Hey, hey, let's all